The child opens his eyes after sleep. When he is woken up with words, his name is Wushu. There is a dark silhouette of a man standing in the doorway when the boy says that it is too light here, and is it really his dad standing there? The man scratches the back of his head with a smile on his face and apologizes, saying that he died from overwork. The child sits up on the bed and looks at his father, saying that he cannot believe it. The boy, with fear on his face, asks whether it's really so sudden and what will happen to him now, while the guy thinks that he died while writing a web novel. The man holds out his hand with the shining key, saying that he cannot call it a parting gift, but the child can use it. And the boy wonders that his father came to him in a dream that day and left him a mysterious key. The golden key shines with brilliance while the boy asks what it is it really a key? An armored hand pokes the child's cheek as he hears being told that he shouldn't worry. Several silhouettes of adventurers stand near Wushu, and the man continues to say that the boy will have a friend, their demon lord, calling the child the main character of the novel his father wrote. Wushu opens his eyes in shock and asks what a demon lord is. The sun's rays illuminate a multi-story building. 10 years pass. There are notices on the door about the termination of service to the apartment. The guy with the key around his neck looks at them silently. His shadow falls on the door and he asks what it is, and says that it really irritates him. The guy rips off the notifications with one wave of his hand and shouts, asking why do such a thing in the age of technology, hanging them in the most visible place. He clutches the paper in his hands, saying that he will soon be kicked out due to late rent payments, which infuriates him. He throws the crumpled paper onto the floor. Light bulbs shine from the windows of houses. From another room of the apartment you can hear a TV shouting that they are looking forward to the next meeting, and not to change the channel. The guy drinks liquid from a cup while the TV says it's commercial time. He turns his head towards the TV when it says that this time they are providing viewers with an incredible product. The girl from the TV is holding a book in her hands, asking if viewers know that the nationally known game Another World was created based on a web novel. The guy takes the remote control and presses a button on it, saying that again this is an advertisement for a game that he is tired of, thinking that there is another thing that his father left behind. The rays of the sun illuminate the white VR glasses when the hero realizes that the man left him HVR glasses of hyper-virtual reality. Seagulls fly over the castle and medieval village. A silhouette in armor stands, towering over the monsters. A brunette man swings a sword while a magician uses his icy magic, and the guy remembers Another World, his father's web novel, which became a big hit and was embodied in the game. Wushu sits while the bright light of the TV illuminates him, talking, asking, but what does this game have to do with him? Because the child of such a writer can only afford ramen. The guy's hand holding the remote control trembles when the TV says that this book is a hot hit, and the price of the key that comes with the book is growing rapidly. The girl points her hand at the lock attached to the book, saying that this publication has a lock, and the woman next to her asks why the key was lost. The guy looks surprised when they say on TV that they are offering special edition books without a key at a special price, and their quantity is limited and you need to hurry. To which Wushu says, why does it cost the same as a computer? A bead of sweat rolls down the protagonist's face, making him wonder if this is a book. A golden key peeks out from under the guy's t-shirt as he wonders if these limited edition books are supposed to have a key. In a room full of bookshelves, paper is scattered on the floor. The guy opens the door to the room, lighting it, and says that if there is a limited edition, then there should be at least a couple of pieces at home. There are a huge number of books on the bookshelves, to which Wushu says that his father's office is littered with his novels. Behind the protagonist on the sofa are virtual reality glasses. The guy approaches the bookcases, saying that he is looking for limited edition books. He pulls out one of the books with his finger, saying that it is in hardcover, just like the book from that TV store. The guy holds a green-bound book in front of him, saying that this is not a book, but its title is Survive the Strongest in the World of the Strongest. He takes the golden lock on the book with his hand, saying that it also has a lock. The light from the building's windows illuminates the street at night while the protagonist says that he seems to remember this publication. Wushu pulls out a key from under his t-shirt, saying that as a child he abbreviated its name by initials, and there were incredibly strong characters, if he remembers correctly. The girl punches the dragon in its face, saying that it scared her, while the guy says that even an ordinary child could kill a dragon and the whole world was described in this style. Wushu holds up a sparkling golden key, asking that it looks like this very key will help him earn money. The guy sits with a book in his hands on the floor, saying that now it's time for him to change his life and he can solve the problem with his rent. He inserts the key into the lock on the book, telling him to let this key fit. Opening the book, a bright light shines on Wu Zhu's face and he is surprised that it opened. The guy is blinded by a bright light from a book. A bright light shines from the windows of the apartment, from which screams can be heard. Wu Zhu turns over on the floor, shouting that an open book should be so blinding, and would an adequate person do such a thing? Clouds of dust swirl around the glowing book. The book stops glowing and the dust settles. The guy lies on the floor and trembles. Looking at the empty binder, he says that this is nonsense. He looks around the book, wondering if there was really nothing inside, and he doesn't see the key either. The guy shakes out the binder and a special gift notification appears in the back while the guy says he definitely felt something inside. From the virtual reality glasses, a notification about a special gift for Wu Zhu is visible, in which you need to click the accept button to open the gift. The guy turns around at the glasses lying on the sofa, asking if he really got a gift. The protagonist looks in surprise at the notifications that appear. He opens his eyes wide when a notification appears that a daily task has appeared for Wu Zhu to deliver wyvern eggs with a limited time. The guy looks at the notification that appears in the air, wondering what is going on. He looks away, wondering if a daily task has appeared. Wu Zhu puts the book aside on the floor and says that he doesn't know what it was, but it hit his eyes, saying that he will find the key a little later. He puts on virtual reality glasses, saying that the reward for this task will provide him with at least one normal meal, because he is already tired of eating ramen. The guy adjusts the glasses on his head, saying that in this boring life you need to earn money somehow. Wu Zhu leans back on the sofa while the system windows tell him to connect to another world and for him to take a comfortable position. He lies down on the pillow with his head and says that the key turned out to be an unusual find and he will need to find out the price after completing the task. The guy turns his gaze to the gift notification, saying that he remembered it. Mountains are built from computer graphics. While the protagonist asks why this notification pops up so often, is it really some new type of spam? Wu Zhu is surrounded by pink pixels and says what's going on. A game notification with a gift appears in front of him, and he says that it is very suspicious, asking if he can not accept it. The guy presses the accept button on the notification, saying that he's already sick of this notification and he'll just take it and throw it away. A glowing white figure appears in front of him. Wu Zhu looks on with surprise on his face, wondering what happened. A white-haired woman appears in front of him, wondering where she is. The guy opens his mouth in surprise, wondering who she is. Horns are visible on the head of the white-haired woman, and Wu Zhu thinks that she has black horns with a red tint and long gray hair. A purple line is visible on her massive shoulder pads, and the protagonist wonders if she has an unusual symbol on her shoulders. The woman's eyes sparkle under her gray hair, and he wonders if she even has golden eyes. The girl looks at the guy in shock when he confidently calls her Lucia, and she screams, asking how he knows the name of the demon lord. The woman stands, towering over the crowd of monsters, while the protagonist thinks that he cannot believe that this is the final boss of Survive the Fittest in the world of the fittest, the same Lucia who had to be defeated in the end. The guy looks at her with his uncomprehending eyes, perplexed that this is nonsense, starting with the fact that this is a character from another novel. Lucia looks around while Wu Zhu thinks that the synchronization turned out decent, and every detail was worked out. The woman sits down on one knee screaming and asking who he is and where they are, because the heroes were just about to execute this body. The guy looks at her with his blue eyes, thinking that even her speech matches perfectly, but her words make him want to puke. But he has salvation, an iron mask, and he says that everything is clear to him and he just wanted to do his daily task. Lucia points her finger at Wu Zhu and shouts that the guy is really that god. The guy stands over the woman while the sun shines on him and she asks if the heroes really killed her. He points to the side, saying that yes, he really is a god, meaning that he is the son of the author of the novel, and he needs to complete his quest. And there is a wyvern nest here, so it is dangerous to stay for a long time. Lucia opens her fanged mouth wide, screaming what if he really is a god. She stands towering over the guy and asks what words she uttered immediately after her birth 30,000 years ago. Lucia points her finger at Wu Zhu, saying that if he pretends to be a god and answers incorrectly, he will be very sorry. She falls to her knees in front of the protagonist when he thinks that Lucia introduces herself in the novel with only one phrase, saying that his magic eye sees everything, and she replies that it means she is really dead. The guy looks at her with his blue eyes, thinking that some people manage to make good money from gaming and let him play along with her and try to get some money. A wyvern's face appears near his head. Wu Zhu jumps away from the monster, scared. He shouts that he does not believe that the wyvern has already appeared. He puts his hands to his mouth and screams, with an emotionless face using the Iron Mask skill, which allows him to keep a poker face in any situation. The guy clenches his teeth, lying in virtual glasses. He says that if he dies, he will lose 30% of the remaining gold, and then there won't even be enough for utilities, not to mention rent. The wyvern growls loudly, its mouth open, while Wuzhu is critical for someone to save him. Lucia, sitting on her knees on the floor, says that this is an ordinary lizard, and he can just run away if he doesn't want to die. She looks up at him with her golden eyes in surprise when he thinks that he needs to continue to play this role even now, and he says that in his place she would cope, because she is the lord of the demons Lucia. The guy extends his hand to the woman and says that she is the one who cannot be deceived because of her magical eyes, because, as she said, God appeared before her. He points a finger at the wyvern behind him, saying that he cannot use his power, asking if she should deal with the tiny creature herself. Wuzhu lowers his blue eyes to the woman, thinking that this sounds stupid, but for the sake of salvation, he is ready to play this stupid role. Lucia smiles, looking at the guy. She says that she cannot do this, to which he shouts at her to shut her mouth and go away. She turns around and with sweat on her face says that it's a pity that he can't use his power, because she has a similar situation with him. Her arms and legs are wrapped in glowing chains, and she says that the heroes used a trick to seal away her powers, which seems to be their only option for defeating her. Wuzhu runs from the approaching wyvern when Lucia says that if not for this trick, the creature would have disappeared long ago, and the protagonist thinks that he doesn't care, and they need to do something. The guy runs, waving his arms, thinking that he needs to switch the wyvern's attention, because this is one of the ways to survive. Several wyverns chase after the fleeing Wuzhu, wondering why they were all targeting him. Lucia smiles and tilts her head a little, saying that for some reason the heroes made a stupid mistake. She watches the guy running away, saying that at least this body cannot use the power of a demon lord. Energy forms above her horns, purple in color, and she says that she can transfer her power to someone else. The power from the horns. Lucia follows the protagonist, and she shouts that thanks to this ability she was able to create an army of demons. The woman's power touches Wuzhu, who is being chased by wyverns, and she shouts that since he cannot use his divine power, he should try to borrow the power of the demon lord. The guy is surrounded by pink energy and wonders what it is. His foot is surrounded by magic and he says he doesn't understand what's happening. He places his foot on the ground and wonders what is wrong with his body. It is so light. Wuzhu moves unnaturally fast. The wyvern watches as the guy disappears. Lucia looks at the space hole that has appeared in the sky, asking where he is going, saying that she sees everything with her magical eyes. Her yellow eye glows and she crosses her arms and asks why he went to a place where it's hard to even breathe. Wuzhu finds himself on a space asteroid when Lucia asks if he really wanted to return to his divine world. The guy looks around him, perplexed. He looks at the planet next to him, asking what happened. Blood drips from his mouth and he wonders why he ended up in space and where the wyvern is. Wuzhu, lying in his glasses, begins to shake, shouting that it is impossible to breathe here, and he is shaking all over because it is very cold. He swings his leg, coughing. He slams his heel into the floor. The guy, holding his throat, ends up back on the ground, and Lucia exclaims that he has returned. He turns his head towards the woman as he thinks about why he took such a giant step, and the girl asks if he liked her power transfer skill, to which he asks what power transfer she is talking about. The wyvern behind the guy roars loudly while the protagonist shouts that he has returned straight to the wyvern. He digs his foot into the ground, screaming to run. The wyvern closes its mouth. The wyvern looks blankly at the falling Wuzhu, who says that he has gone back into space. The wyverns lower their heads towards the guy, who is surprised. The monsters are surprised as soon as Wuzhu disappears, shouting that it is dangerous. The wyverns look frozen at the guy who reappeared with the words that he was back in space and it was too much for him. The monsters watch as Wuzhu suddenly appears and disappears. The wyverns' faces frown, they get angry for no particular reason, and the guy screams. Wuzhu and the woman are surrounded by monsters when the guy thinks about what he should do, because he can't even take a normal step. The protagonist turns his head to Lucia and wonders what she said about transferring power, which is the ability of the demon lord from the novel. The woman is illuminated by the rays of the bright sun, when Wuzhu thinks that she is really the strongest Lucia from another book, who became a playable character in this game. One book rises above another mountain of books, and the guy thinks that the book from which the girl came, Survive the Strongest in the World of the Strongest, has a completely different genre, being the most striking work of his father in the style of novels about strong characters. The girl hits the dragon in the face, while the hero thinks that even a child in this book could fight back the monster. The man sits with his head in his hands, saying that the first chapter shouldn't start with some village kid defeating a dragon, while Wu Zhu wonders that his father was bothered by strong characters appearing from the very beginning. Pink lightning flashes next to the woman, and the guy thinks that Lucia is the strongest among the strongest, and the difference with the characters of the game he is in will be huge compared to her. Wu Zhu pushes his foot off the ground and he thinks that one step and he is in space. He looks at the rings of the nearest planet, thinking that after taking the second step he is already on Earth. The wyverns look at him with puzzled faces. His blue eyes sparkle in the sun while he thinks that it seems the balance of this game will be completely destroyed and he doesn't want to believe it. Wu Zhu clenches his teeth. Worried, he says that he will have to believe, because there is no other way to explain this situation. Wyverns roar loudly towards the protagonist. The guy turns to Lucia, addressing her. He raises his hand while the wyvern is hunting him, saying that he has difficulty controlling the power she gave, asking how to properly use it. Lucia furrows her brows and clenches her hand into a fist, asking why God asks such questions, telling him to strike the sky so that the earth does not split. Wu Zhu clenches his hand into a fist and says that, of course, his father's novel mentioned this strange rule. He is attacked by a crowd of wyverns when he says that to prevent the earth from splitting, he needs to raise his fist into the sky. An explosion was heard from the earth flying through space. A flash forms on the surface of the earth. A pillar of light sweeps through space, destroying a comet. The beam flies, breaking through planets on its way. Pink energy flies further, deforming the structure of the planet. It reaches Saturn without breaking through it. Lucia looks at the funnel of clouds and says that it didn't even go beyond the solar system. A notification window appears in front of Wu Zhu, and the girl says that his strength is comparable to the boss of an average dungeon. And the guy thinks that in her world this might actually be true. Clouds of dust disperse from him and he realizes that in this game he has destroyed every creature in the area, wondering if there are any wyvern eggs left at all. The system notification says that there are 7 minutes until the end of the task. Wu Zhu runs his finger over the notification, saying that it looks like the wyvern eggs are somewhere here, and they need to hurry up. He waves his hand at Lucia and says that it is time for him to go, to which she is perplexed. Wu Zhu stopped his foot in front of the ground and said that he almost forgot. He points his finger at his feet, telling her to free him from this power, to which Lucia laughs, asking if this is a joke. Does she really look like a sorceress? The guy with empty eyes looked at the woman who started shouting that the special ability of the Demon Lord is provided free of charge and forever, to which he thinks that he did not know about it. The rays of the sun illuminate the protagonist's face and he thinks. A funnel of clouds has formed in the sky, and Wu Zhu tells her to cancel it, to which Lucia asks if he really didn't hear her words. And he replies that he needs to finish the quest, but he can't take a step. She asks, is he so stupid, and he shouts for her to cancel the effect, and then thinks that you never know at what moment a new huge problem may arise. Sunlight illuminates lonely rocks. This is Wyvern Canyon. A small flower appears from the rock and the guy thinks that that day the Wyvern Canyon turned into ruins. A lush flower blooms and the protagonist thinks that just a week later the greatness of nature gave a second life to this extinct land. Wu Zhu watches the bird fly up to the flower. He turns his gaze towards the noise. The two men carry eggs and ask where all the wyverns went, enjoying their daily task. The girl puts the eggs in her inventory, saying that now she will be able to buy the sneakers that she has wanted to buy for so long. Wu Zhu's cloak flutters in the wind, and he thinks that he is jealous of them, because he received an unreal amount of power. But he has been standing in this place for a whole week. The evening sun illuminates the canyon. A week ago, Wu Zhu stands with his arms crossed over his chest. He says that he is in space with one step, and he thinks that he cannot give up so easily. He stands there, brow furrowed, thinking about the 38,001 diner bill, 2 meals, hand washing with plain water, saving for bread, rummaging through the machines to find change, 3 months of overdue bills, and 3 months without a salary, about eating only ramen every day, with the desire to eat a stray cat, about turning socks inside out instead of washing them, about refusing to use the phone, wondering if he's not the same Wu Zhu who doesn't give in to despair. The eyebrows on the protagonist's face frown and he thinks about what he needs to think more about. The protagonist's leg is surrounded by magic and he thinks that the accelerator is delivering full power, and he flies off the ground. Wu Zhu lifts his leg and thinks that he needs to be calmer and he needs to move his leg, moving his center of gravity as far as possible. He leans his body back, saying that the strategy of moving the legs by transferring the weight of the whole body can be called an aerial walk. The guy looks at the sky and says that it is easier than he thought. A sharp wind hits Wu Zhu's face. The pink beam flies off the ground and the guy asks if he really ended up here again. The protagonist lands on the ground and says that if one step sends him into space, then he just needs to take 0 steps. He runs his toe backwards along the ground and says that the smooth backward movement, as if dragging along the ground, is the so-called moonwalk. Wu Zhu moves backwards, leaving behind a crack in the ground, shouting that he did everything softly, asking why the earth was divided into 2 parts. He waves his hands, imitating a bird, says that he has no words, and that they could at least give him wings. The guy flies off the ground using magic, saying that in fact he flies easily. He sighs heavily, standing still, saying that this situation has gone too far. A beam of bright pink magic shoots out from the ground and the protagonist screams that he just sighed. Wu Zhu turns his gaze to the laughter behind him. Lucia, holding her stomach, points at the guy and laughs, asking what he is doing, because one cannot look at this without pity, saying that there were no such funny creatures in the demonic world. Wu Zhu coolly looks at her with his eyes, thinking that all the problems were caused by her. Demon Lord Lucia, the most powerful villainess of all time from the novel. The woman looks at the guy in surprise, asking why he is making such a face, and he thinks that it was because of her that his father developed post-traumatic stress disorder. The man grabs his head with his hands and asks what he should do, saying that he cannot think of a way to defeat Lucia, and now overly strong characters scare him. Wu Zhu's eyes fall into shadow from the sun shining behind him and he thinks that such a powerful character shared his power with him. Lucia laughs, standing in front of the protagonist and tells him to show her his techniques at any time, because she will be interested in watching it, and the guy thinks that in this situation it is actually his fault. Wu Zhu grits his teeth and furrows his brows, thinking that it was actually because of him that everything started. He holds up a shiny gold key, wondering if it's a book key and thinking he was watching TV shopping after a story about his father's work. The guy looks at the book, saying that this is a different novel and thinks that when it opened, something happened. The bright light blinds Wu Zhu, and he sits in misunderstanding. With his finger he presses the system window button, thinking that he received the gift from which Lucia appeared. The guy looks at the surprised blonde woman when she asks how he knows the name of the Demon Lord, and the guy thinks that she is the Demon Lord from another novel. Lucia frowns and looks at the guy questioningly as he wonders if this really happened because of him. With sweat running down his face and his brow furrowed, he thinks that he must first find a way to break this curse. Wu Zhu reaches out to Lucia and asks what to do if her power suddenly disappears, to which she replies that he should not worry and that she has transferred her power to him forever, and therefore she will be with him forever, adding that in fact who really knows. The blonde girl sticks out her tongue and waves her hand, saying that she might leave him if she dies, wondering what will happen to her since she is immortal. Wu Zhu looks at Lucia in surprise and says that then nothing can be done about it, wondering if this will really go away when she dies. The rays of the sun illuminate 2 figures and the guy communicates with the girl, calling her name more and more loudly. Wu Zhu points his index finger at Lucia, asking if she understands their situation and most likely has only one regret. The guy with an emotionless expression on his face says that he will get rid of her casual expression, and that's it. In front of Lucia, the guy disappears, saying that his words were very threatening. The girl looks in bewilderment at the dust of smoke left behind by the guy. Wu Zhu gets out of bed, taking off his virtual reality helmet. He thinks that he just has to come up with a suitable way. He excitedly touches the key on his neck, saying that he has the key, wondering if somehow it ended up on his neck. The protagonist turns his head, thinking that it looks like his pendant has been returned for him to use. The guy quickly moves around the apartment, thinking that he needs to find another job for his father. He stops in front of the bookshelves, thinking that he can finish off Lucia if he finds a stronger character. Wu Zhu runs his hand over the books, wondering what genre and what character he should choose. He looks at the books with excited eyes, thinking that he was the first to get acquainted with all the novels of his father and they have always been with him since childhood. The protagonist runs his finger through many books, exclaiming that he cannot find the one he needs, thinking that he must find the one who will defeat Lucius. He grits his teeth and thinks that he needs such a strong character who would be adequate, the strongest from his world, who can defeat the Demon Lord. Wu Zhu pulls out one of the books with his finger. He looks at the book in his hands in shock, saying that he found it, a novel in a dangerous genre, although he has no other choice. The light of the lamps illuminates the room and the building, and he thinks that this is a crisis situation. And if he hesitates, he will not be able to earn a living. A bright flash of light from the building illuminates the night street. An empty binder falls in front of the protagonist and he says that, as expected, this is just another dummy. A notification appears on the virtual reality glasses and Wu Zhu asks if he really succeeded. A system notification appears at the glasses, which says that a gift has arrived for Wu Zhu, and you need to click on the accept button to open it. After which the guy screams that he succeeded and received notifications. The protagonist puts on virtual reality glasses and asks if this was the right choice, because if we talk about strength, then this character is more dangerous than Lucia. The guy looks excitedly at the system notification about the gift and says that before accepting the gift, he needs to find out details about what time period the character is from. Lucia kneels in front of Wu Zhu, screaming that the heroes were going to execute her body. And the protagonist says that the Demon Lord was on the verge of execution in the second half of the 8th volume of the novel. The guy is holding a miniature version of the girl, saying that it looks like the limited edition books are set for a specific moment, and he needs to look into it. A virtual world appears before his eyes and he says that first he needs to choose a meeting place, because he will not be able to take a step from there. The choice of starting location appears and Wu Zhu wonders which location he should choose, saying that then he will choose the sparsely populated Snow by Fedor. The guy appears on a snowy field called Snow by Fedor. He opens the system window, resting his finger on the button. Wu Zhu presses the accept button on the system notification, thinking that now is the time. A white silhouette appears in front of him and he wonders if he succeeded. The brunette man sits with his legs close to him while the guy thinks about the fact that he never thought that he could meet him in the game. The killer Zero. The guy with red eyes looks at Wu Zhu in surprise. The protagonist looks at Zero with his blue eyes, thinking that it is much easier to understand where he is from in history than compared to Lucia, because he has a sign on his shoulder confirming his ranking among killers. He looks at the shoulder of the guy with 2 stars on him and wonders if he's still level 2, wondering if this is the moment before he escaped from the training camp. The silhouette of Zero stands with glowing eyes and 5 stars, and Wu Zhu thinks that this is the unique killer from his father's novel about incredibly strong heroes. And this character escapes from the organization of killers, awakening, rising to the 5th level. Snow-white threads lie against the background of blood splashes, and the guy thinks that about 3 billion people were beheaded by him. A magical blue dial appears in the air, and Wu Zhu realizes that the time spent on these murders was 0.000001 seconds. The stars rush across the sky at incredible speed and the guy realizes that Zero is incredibly fast, 10 trillion times faster than light. Snow rushes between the 2 guys and the protagonist thinks that it is dangerous to date a guy like Zero, but he has no other choice. The blonde girl points and laughs while Wu Zhu thinks that the only way to defeat Lucia is with his help. Zero pulls the thread with his teeth and the protagonist thinks that even in the murder camp the guy was considered a person without emotions, overcome by a thirst to kill, and he is the one he needs. Wu Zhu opens his inventory menu and scrolls through it, saying he needs to open the item box, thinking he's using a certain item to make the guy his. Zero raises his head in surprise. The brunette jumps out of his seat as Wu Zhu says that we need to see which thing will fit better. A notification sound comes from the system window. Zero uses a thread to wrap around the protagonist's neck, and he says that he found what he was looking for. The brunette looks at Wu Zhu in surprise when he says that he has a gift for Zero's number. The brunette is wearing clothes and the protagonist says that he has a ninja husky, a basic men's short-sleeve t-shirt and black skinny jeans with a fleece and 2 buttons. Zero lands on his knees next to Wu Zhu. The brunette inspects his new clothes, while the protagonist thinks that being naked is the norm at training camp, and this may be the first time he has been wearing clothes. Zero looks up in surprise at Wu Zhu, who takes pity on him. The protagonist holds out his hand with a pink handkerchief, asking if the guy really feels warm, and this must be his first time. Zero rubs his body with his hands. The brunette turns his whole body towards Wu Zhu. The guy with red eyes looks carefully at the protagonist, who thinks that everything is fine. Wu Zhu exhales warm air, telling Zero to come closer to him, speaking to him kindly, and thinking that he has to play a role and therefore will have to use such stupid words. The brunette comes closer to the protagonist and he tells him that since he cannot take a single step, the guy will come even closer. Zero came close to Wu Zhu when he said that he came too close. The protagonist holds out a pink handkerchief, thinking that the story begins with Laura, a female researcher, freeing the brunette, and then he felt warmth for the first time. Zero holds a girl with glasses next to him and Wu Zhu wonders that at the time of his escape, he almost became a demon due to a fierce battle, but returned to his normal state thanks to the warmth he received. The protagonist ties a scarf around the brunette's neck and thinks that by giving him warmth, he becomes Laura, no matter how it sounds. Zero is excited and sweat appears on his face, while Wuzhu silently apologizes to him and wonders if he understands what it looks like. Laura hugs the brunette against the backdrop of the sunset, and the protagonist thinks that the brunette worked hard in the training camp and deserved an incomparable heroine. Wuzhu stretches out his hands tying the scarf around Zero's neck and wonders if he took it at the right moment so that he could defeat Lucius, and for this he would become the first on his kill list, wondering if the brunette's reaction would change due to the fact that he of a different gender. The protagonist looks at Zero with sparkling eyes and says that this scarf is a paid item and thanks to this, he will never let it freeze again. The brunette opens his eyes wide and blushes. The rays of the sun illuminate the locked book, and Wuzhu thinks that he completely forgot about the title of the novel, from which the guy is a story about an overly strong character who thinks only about murder, because the novel was a mixture of popular genres at that time, which his father simply took it and mixed it. Sakura petals fly between the protagonist and the brunette and he remembers the title of the book. Today even a killer fell in love, where the main genre is romance. Wuzhu looks at the interested Zero and thinks that everything seems to have worked out for him, although his conscience torments him a little. The dog snaps at the inspired duck and the protagonist thinks that the brunette is like a duckling, which considers the first person it meets as its parent after birth. But this does not matter because the effect of the status will soon end. Wuzhu smiles ominously while wearing virtual reality glasses and thinks that he needs the guy to be his faithful dog for now, because due to an event that happened earlier, he could not complete his daily routine for a week. The sun's rays peek through the clouds and the protagonist turns to Zero. Wuzhu extends his hand to the brunette and asks if he will go with him, thinking that everything is going according to his plan, although there is still one problem. Zero looks at the protagonist with interest when he thinks that he still has the second level of the killer, and in order to defeat Lucius he needs at least the third. Wuzhu turns his head towards the noise, saying that some kind of test is needed to raise the brunette's level. Huge monsters appear from under the snow. A huge crowd of monsters stands in front of Wuzhu and he shouts that these are snow rabbits, and there are a lot of them. The protagonist folds his hands over his mouth and shouts that there is an emergency while his face remains emotionless using the Iron Mask skill. Zero points his finger at Wuzhu. The brunette begins to laugh at the protagonist. Particles of fire appear near Wuzhu and he says that he knows that this is wrong. He stands in the fiery circle and asks why this reaction irritates him so much. He remembers Lucia laughing at him, saying that she remembers this reaction in a woman. Wuzhu extends his hand, stopping Zero. He tells him to move away, because it seems like a good opportunity to show him his strength. He lowers his head and a shadow covers his eyes as he tells Zero to look closely at what happens when he's upset. Wuzhu clenches his fist, takes a stance and says so that the earth does not split. He gathers magic in his fist and says that he needs to raise his fist into the sky. With gentle rabbits hiding back under the snow, Wuzhu looks at the snow in surprise, wondering why they went underground. Did they really feel its power? A huge amount of snow falls on the guys and the protagonist shouts that this is such nonsense and asks why they didn't hide so suddenly. Wuzhu, wearing the virtual reality glasses, grits his teeth and says that he can't attack them underground because he doesn't know if Lucia's power has increased his defense. Zero laughs while the snow rushes towards them and the protagonist shouts that he does not understand what they should do. A pile of snow falls on the brunette. He looks down with his red eyes. Zero notices that his t-shirt is wet. He pulls off his clothes, which are all wet. Tears appear on the brunette's face and he says with disappointment, "Clothes," while the protagonist thinks that this is the reason for increasing his level. Zero quickly moves from his place and Wuzhu thinks that he did it in 0.000000001 seconds. Next to the 2 stars, a third one lights up. After that, a fourth appears there. The 5th bright white star lights up. 5 stars glow on Zero's chest, and he levels up to level 5. Wuzhu clasps his head in his hands, screaming that he is going to die. The white thread sparkles in the sun. She passes through mountains of snow. Snow rises into the air. Wuzhu stands on a pillar of snow and groups himself. He raises his head, surprised, and stands on a piece of land. The protagonist extends his hands to the flying Zero, saying that he just dealt with 100 trillion monsters, and this is only possible at the 5th level, wondering how he did it, because he had a second one. 5 stars are burning on the brunette's shoulder, while Wuzhu thinks that Killer Zero used his skill to its full potential. The stars on the guy's shoulder begin to fade and the guy thinks about what it means. The stars on the shoulder have disappeared and the protagonist is surprised. Zero jumps, showing an empty shoulder, and Wuzhu shouts for the guy to look at his shoulder, asking what they should do now. The protagonist desperately lowers his head, thinking that to defeat Lucia, at least the 3rd level is needed, asking what they should do now with the Demon Lord. Zero sits on a pillar of earth while in the northern canyon, Snow by Fedor. He warms his hands with his breath. The brunette's gaze becomes sad. Wuzhu folded his hands on his chest and said that Zero is the initial level in the game Another World, and now the guy is of no use, because their opponent is the Demon Lord Lucia. He turns his gaze to Zero, wondering how he used a level 5 skill and killed 100 trillion snow rabbits. And there is already a quick way in the book that was not mentioned. Thinking that at such moments you need to act for sure, Wuzhu disappears into pixels, saying that he will be back soon and Zero was waiting for him here. The brunette watches as the protagonist disappears. Heavy snow begins to fall from the sky. Zero sits covered in snow. With excitement on his face, he raises his hand to himself. His eye pupils are getting smaller. The pillar on which Zero sits is surrounded by flying monsters. A large bat flies towards the guy, and on the system window it is written that it is a snow bat with an ice attribute. The habitat of Snow by Fedor, Ranky. Zero excitedly pulls the thread in his hands. He gets scared, opening his eyes wide, thinking that if the bat steals his clothes, then Wuzhu will abandon the brunette. The guy quickly deals with the mice. Light shines from the room with books. Books of different volumes are scattered on the floor, and the protagonist says that there is nothing. There is no quick way to increase the level of the killer. He leans his back on the shelf of books and says that no matter how much he reads, he cannot find anything. Wuzhu, with a worried expression on his face, says that this way he will definitely not be able to complete his daily task and will simply die of hunger. He puts his hand to his noisy stomach. The light from the apartment illuminates the night street and the protagonist says that he thinks it's time for him to go get some ramen. Multi-story panel houses stand in the darkness of the night. Light from the store illuminates people passing by. There are several figures standing in a dark alley and one of them asks if they have heard about something. Women's hands are holding a phone on which it is written that Snowy Befidor has evaporated and visiting it is currently prohibited, to which someone says that how annoying it is, it looks like someone fell to death on Snowy Befidor. 3 teenage girls are standing in a dark alley and a brunette girl asks, "Why go there at all?" To which the blonde asks that someone really came for the rabbits in some kind of raincoat, and who even wears such clothes now. The blonde averts her gaze, saying that at such moments she always lacks nicotine. To which the brunette agrees and is surprised. The girls notice Wuzhu walking down the street, saying that they could ask him to buy cigarettes, to which the blonde asks who it is. A brunette girl hands money to a boy wearing glasses, telling him to go get some bread, when Wuzhu raises his hand, shouting that he can run and buy at the speed of light, and the brunette asks if the girl doesn't know Wuzhu, the errand boy who willing to do anything for change, who seems obsessed with money. The protagonist places his hand on the door of the store while the girl says that he is tall and looks good, although he is still strange. The blonde waves her hand while she tells him that he is already entering the store and that he should wait. Wuzhu looks at the girl as she turns to him, screaming. He takes a few steps towards them, asking if these are Miss Jehai and Minji, to which the blonde asks in surprise if he really knows them, and the brunette asks why he addresses them so formally, and the protagonist replies that formal speech should be used with clients. The girls hand him money, saying that they wanted him to buy them nicotine and take the change for himself. The guy looks at them excitedly, saying that this is a little wrong. He notices a girl with pink hair, asking if Lee Sukai is here too, to which she tells him to ignore him and move on. Jehai and Minhee come out of the alley with the guy and he asks if she can return the books to Sukha that she borrowed from his father, to which the brunette asks if they really go to visit each other. The girls turn to their friend, asking if she is close to Wuzhu and she could ask him for nicotine herself, since she is close to him, to which she shouts that everything is wrong. The protagonist looks in shock at the blonde's phone screen, shouting whether this news has already become known. He grabs the girl's hand, to which she is surprised. With his other hand, he pushes her on the shoulder, asking how this happened. A man on a moped passes next to the guys. A man speeds past, shouting that he's sorry because he's late for a delivery, while a brunette woman shouts after him, wondering if he's gone crazy. Jihyo turns to the guys, wondering what happened and where he got so much power. Suk doesn't care and looks at the phone. The lantern illuminates the silhouette of a guy. Minhee, lying on the floor, blushes, thinking that this cannot be, and she never paid attention to Wuzhu, because he is an errand boy. But he turned out to be so cool. He looks at the blonde with his sparkling eyes, which is just a fantasy, and asks if she is okay. In reality, he screams with a terrified expression on her face for her to give him her phone. He swipes the phone screen, where it says that users should avoid the snow by photo area, since he is at the stage of studying the initial data, and the guy thinks that even in the original work this place is not described in detail. The brunette turns to an uninterested Sukka, asking what is going on here and if the girl is close to him and then she should introduce them to each other well, to which the girl replies that she never said that they were close. The pink-haired girl opens her eyes slightly as she is told that the news contains a mention of the magic of Lucius, the demon lord, although this was not originally the case. Sukka opens her eyes in surprise when she hears that she needs to look for the original Androgynda data. She tilts her head and asks about Androgynda's original data. Sukka comes closer with trembling legs, asking if she really means that very strong villain Lucia. Wuzhu turns around, showing the news, and saying that the girl was his father's biggest fan, and therefore cannot help but know her. Manhwa excitedly turns to her friend while the protagonist says that he is interested in the secret of awakening the power of the Killer Zero, which should be in undisclosed details. Sukka grits his teeth and worries, wondering if he really means Zero, the same killer from the novel, and that means there are undisclosed details. She hangs her head, asking if there is a plot that no one knows about. The light from the windows illuminates the street while the girl screams that this can't be happening. Suk runs up to Wuzhu, who is helping the blonde, shouting that there is nothing like that, because she searched on the internet, articles and even publishing houses, to which the guy replies that in fact they exist, thinking that they are in that place, which he doesn't like so much. The protagonist tenses his eyebrows and grins, saying that on the weekend his father did not play with him, but went to that very place and started his new job, and therefore he might have missed something. The sun's rays illuminate the desktop and the guy screams that the clues should be on the table in his father's office, because there are a lot of different sketches about the very beginning of the works, so he is busy, and he needs to go. A glowing store sign illuminates the street and Minhee and Jihai scream that they will go with Wuzhu. Sukka and her friends look at the guy running away, wondering if they are on the writer's desk. She clenches her teeth, saying that this is just ridiculous and this is the first time she has heard of such a thing. Minhee and Jihai hold hands, and Sukka wonders what if there are details that were not revealed, if they actually exist. She looks away with excitement on her face, thinking that she wants to see it with her own eyes, saying that she needs to make sure. The phone in her hand begins to vibrate. Sukka brings the phone to her and answers the call, where they shout at her, "Ms. Sukka, this is Jason," and he received the coordinates in the Wyvern Canyon, promising to get rid of the problematic creature as soon as possible. The girl tenses her face and replies that it will be good. The pillar rises above the ground. Zero sits under the snowfall in snowy Bifidor. His clothes are completely covered in blood. He touches his clothes, disappointed. The brunette touches his bloody sleeve, remembering how he was told that he had not completed the task. Zero sits in front of a man with a whip, who says that for this he will suffer the appropriate punishment and he will not have food for 3 days, and so that the guy remembers that he is getting rid of unnecessary things. The brunette lowers his head, hugging his knees. With a worried look on his face, he remembers Wuzhu saying that Zero is useless now. The brunette raises his head in surprise at the flying monsters. There are people sitting on the griffins, who are an information-gathering team, a team of griffins that has 12 riders, who are talking about whether there really are only 2 pillars left from snowy Bifidor, and there is no information about the guy who is sitting on one of them. The griffin uses bright yellow magic and the men say that all this is suspicious, because the bodies of snowbats are lying below, and they need to get rid of the brunette first. Several griffins use griffin cannon magic to attack Zero. The man adjusts his magnifying glass and says that the hit is confirmed and the indicators are vital, but he does not have time to finish, being surprised. The guy appears behind the man with the thread, and the man asks when he managed to climb up. One of the riders uses the griffin's magic cannon and shoots Zero. A magic missile hits the brunette in the back. Blood pours from his mouth and he clenches his teeth. Zero falls off the griffin and the men scream that they almost died, wondering how he was able to take so many hits. The guy flies down, cutting through the air, while the men converse that it looks like the last attack was lethal, and it looks like they finished him off. They fly around Zero on griffins, talking about how there is no reaction from him, which means they can start researching the disappearance of snowy Bifidor. The brunette flies, bleeding. He closes his eyes and sighs. Wuzhu stands in a red cloak, saying that the guy should wait here and the protagonist will return soon, and therefore he needs to be here. Zero suddenly opens his red eyes. He gets caught on a pole, sliding down it. Zero holds onto the pillar with his hands while the men speculate that he had no vital signs, questioning if he is undead. The guy clenches his teeth. He hooks his limbs onto the post while the men shout that he's going up again and they should just shoot him again. The griffin uses a magic cannon and the man says that there must be a limit to this immortality, and he will turn the brunette into ashes. A bright yellow magical attack hits him in the back. Zero clenches his teeth and trembles. His memory flashes back to the moment when Wu Zhu stood in front of him. He clings to the ledge with his hand. The riders use a variety of magical attacks on Zero. The brunette climbs up with incredible speed. Wu Zhu stands, extending his hand, asking if Zero feels warm, if this is the first time he feels something like this. The brunette's shoulder is hit by a magical attack. His hand trembles and steam comes out of it. Zero lowers his hand, exhausted. The griffin riders take aim at the guy, screaming at how stubborn this guy is and for him to stop already. The guy holds onto the pole with one hand. Zero comes close to Wu Zhu, who tells him that he came too close. The protagonist turns his blue eyes to the guy, saying that he has a rather cold body, even his arms and legs. Zero closes one eye, smiling. The brunette clenches his teeth, covered in blood. He rests one foot on the rock. Zero jumps high to the top of the pillar. He extends his hand, screaming. Wu Zhu ties a scarf around the guy's neck, telling him to remember this paid item. The brunette opens his mouth in surprise, listening to the protagonist ask, "It's also much warmer." Zero has tears in his eyes. Wu Zhu ties a scarf around the guy's neck, saying that with this scarf he will never let the brunette freeze again. Zero closes his eyes exhausted. His hand clenches weakly. The guy grabs him sharply by the arm. Wu Zhu is holding the brunette's hand at the top of the pillar. Snow hits the protagonist's face when he asks if Zero is a fool. The guy's red eyes open wide and he looks at the protagonist, who says that if there is danger, then he needs to run away, asking if he didn't do anything since he told him to wait. A blurry image of Wu Zhu appears before the brunette. Tears form in his red eyes and he groans. Wu Zhu looks at the guy with a stern look, saying that he waited for him and praises him. Large tears appear in Zero's eyes and he begins to cry loudly. The magical attacks of the griffins are directed towards the protagonist, and the brunette is crying. One star lights up on Zero's shoulder. After her, another one appears on his shoulder. On Zero's shoulder there are 2 stars in the form of a tattoo. Wu Zhu lowers his head and thinks that his second level has awakened, which is great, telling the brunette not to worry, because he has other clothes for him. With one wave of his hand, he pulls Zero out, saying that it doesn't matter now because they have another problem to solve. Wu Zhu waves his hand, saying that no matter how you look at it, the Griffin team is an information gathering group and they might run into their employer. He swings his hand up sharply. He forms their magic beams into one, saying that it doesn't matter because he's very angry right now. Men on griffins fly in the sky, talking about what kind of player this is. He prevented the attack. And the other asks if maybe he is the culprit of all the events that are happening. Zero sits surprised while Wu Zhu swings his arms, saying that if the team goes back, they are taking a big risk. He spins magic beams, saying that the griffins are using their magic cannons to get rid of the player and witnesses. Wu Zhu spins around himself, waving his hand up. He thinks about sending them straight into space. Magic attacks hit griffins. Magic rays spread throughout space. The earth is surrounded by magical yellow rays. Lucia stands watching the rays, saying that the protagonist is very funny, and he makes more noise than power. He smiles and extends his hand in front of him, saying that this is still incredible and it seems that the protagonist has found himself a useful assistant. Lucia points to her glowing yellow eye, saying that she gained information beyond dimensions as her magical eye sees everything, thinking that even his father was afraid of them. Wu Zhu uses the inventory, choosing clothes for Zero, while the woman greets the protagonist, calling him God's child, saying that as soon as he comes to her. Lucia smiles ominously, shaking her head. She thinks that her unique army will take over the game Another World. An explosion occurs behind the woman. A man can be seen in the magical red lightning. The blonde man in armor looks at Lucius, saying that he is in the right place. He puts his hand to his ear and says that the problematic creature is here and now he will deal with it. The book with the castle on it glows with light and the title says Another World is a very strong character-style novel that became a hit. A man with a goatee stretches out his hands to her. He is the author of Androgymed. Lucia points her finger at the universe, because the Silva of the characters was so large-scale that any attacks on the ground were prohibited. The man strikes down, splitting the ground. Earth is formed near the pillar because even after such destruction, nature is gradually recovering. The earth floats in the air, and the game Another World is no exception. Wuzhu and Zero are standing on a pillar. The protagonist notices the stones appearing. He looks around, thinking that the damaged area is being restored, and the speed with which this is implemented in the game is amazing. Wuzhu stands on an asteroid near the planet, thinking that the territory is huge and he would never have thought that something like this could be created. He closes his eye in a relaxed manner, thinking that there are a lot of monsters here, although it's not for him to say that, because he himself became one. The protagonist puts his hand clenched into a fist in front of him, thinking that this strength only hinders him, because he cannot even complete his daily task, which is a curse. He clenches his fist tighter, thinking that Lucia made a mistake and therefore the problem will be solved. The woman sticks out her tongue, waving her hand, saying that the power may disappear if this body dies, and the protagonist wonders that his curse will disappear with the death of the caster. He turns his gaze to the brunette, asking him if he is ready, to which he replies positively. The guy stands, looking at Zero with blue eyes and thinking that he couldn't cope on his own, but he might succeed with the killer. Mice fly over the castle in the night sky and the protagonist thinks that he, too, is a strong character from the novel. Today even a murderer fell in love, and it seems something happened in the middle of the 3rd volume. Zero wraps a thread around the man's neck and Wuzhu thinks that the killer tried to kill the immortal boss, and the man says that he managed to get here, but it is useless. The white-haired man looks around in surprise, saying that this body is immortal, and then screams in surprise. Zero pulls the thread around the man's neck as the man wonders how he does it and wonders that he is using a 3-star skill that only one person can use. A white thread surrounds the skull, and the man thinks that the force that causes pain inside the skull, heart, every cell is comparable to mental death, which destroys consciousness and soul. Zero, using a thread, kills a man using the skill of permanent death, and the protagonist thinks that this is Lucia's skill, which is called permanent death. There are 2 stars on the brunette's shoulder and Wuzhu thinks that his strength is at the level of 2 stars. The protagonist lowers his head, thinking that the 2nd level is already good, and the guy needs to get another star to use his skill. A slight smile appears on his face and he thinks that he has nothing to worry about, because he found a lot of information on how to quickly raise the level in his father's office. There is a fire burning around the silhouette, and Wuzhu thinks that, for example, he can use rage. Zero is holding a girl wearing glasses in his arms, and the protagonist thinks that at the end of the story Laura was mortally wounded, which is why Zero was very angry, but it was not so noticeable because it happened after he woke up. Wuzhu looks back, exhaling steam. He thinks anger was the key. Zero stands with a slight smile while the protagonist thinks that the guy looks happy and how he can spoil his mood, so you need to think carefully. Wuzhu turns to the brunette, asking if it's really just a joke for the guy to kill people, and if he doesn't think he needs to be a little more cool-headed about it. Zero gets worried and hugs his hands when Wuzhu says that the guy is too cheerful now. The protagonist lowers his head, saying that he needs to be more angry and think about how to become stronger. The brunette tenses his eyebrows, and Wuzhu shouts to him that this is not enough. Sweat begins to roll down Zero's face as the protagonist yells at him to try harder and to get so angry that his heart breaks with anger. Wuzhu makes horns on his head, saying that he needs to unleash his inner anger. Tears appear in Zero's eyes and Wuzhu wonders if he was so scared from a couple of words. The protagonist's face darkens as he thinks about what he did wrong and how it all came to this. Wuzhu holds out his hand with the scarf on it, saying that it seems like Zero feels warmth for the first time, wondering if it was the scarf he gave to win his affection. He looks at the brunette with blue eyes, wondering if he was in a hurry to awaken warmth in him, if because of this his instincts were dulled. Zero stands shocked as Wuzhu says that if he can't kill, he will take the scarf, asking if he understands that it is a paid item. Sweat began to flow down the brunette's face and the protagonist thinks that he seems to be moving in the right direction. Wuzhu, with an impassive face, asks if the guy now understands how serious everything is, because he is even ready to take away the scarf that he himself gave him. Zero is surrounded by red magic and the protagonist thinks that it looks like he is blackmailing him with the scarf. The brunette's eyes light up red. A 3rd star appears dimly on his shoulder. It lights up with a bright light and Wuzhu thinks that he has succeeded and a new star has appeared. Snow falls from the sky, falling on the pole, and the protagonist asks if the guy is ready now, to which he grunts, asking if this is true, receiving another grunt in response. The location selection menu appears, with the Wyvern Canyon location, and Wu Zhu says that then they are ready. The protagonist touches the system window, saying that then they are going to Lucia. The guys gradually disappear into pink pixels. A canyon made of computer graphics is built in front of the guys. The guys appear on the ground, and Wu Zhu says that this is a canyon of wyverns, but they are not here, and Lucia must be here somewhere. The protagonist turns around at a sudden rustle. He extends his hand pointing to the side and saying that it looks like the demon lord is there. The blonde man holds Lucia by the throat, who shouts that violence is unacceptable, and Wu Zhu asks why she beat him then. The blonde man in armor turns around interestedly. Zero runs, putting the threads in front of him. He hits the man in armor, stopping next to him. The brunette punches the man in the back while he asks what he does and who he is. The man lets go of Lucia and defends himself from the blows, cursing. He blocks the guy's blows, asking what he is doing, because this is clearly an attempt to kill another player. Wu Zhu raises his hand, shouting for Zero to stop, because the man is not his target. He looks at the man in armor, wondering what happened, because the man is completely fine. The sun's rays illuminate the man's face as he asks why they are preventing him from doing his job, saying that he received a message that there is a problematic entity here, and therefore he is eliminating it. Thus swirls between Wu Zhu and the guy thinks about the fact that he called Lucia a problematic entity, which sounds reassuring, and the man asks if the guy is playing without sound or why he doesn't answer him, to which the protagonist asks what he just said, and the man asks what he is trying to achieve. Wu Zhu stands with his hand outstretched while the man asks if what is happening is not an attempt to kill the player, to which the guy asks what kind of murder he is talking about. He opens his eyes in surprise, wondering if he really thought the guy was going to attack him. Wu Zhu extends his hand, pretending to strike, and tells Zero to mean that he has poor stamina, and therefore needs to attack quickly so that no one finds out about his weak side. The man in armor turns to Lucia, while the protagonist thinks that it looks like they made a big fuss, and the woman says that the guy is an idiot and wants something completely different. She props herself up in her arms, saying that what Wu Zhu really wants is to conquer the world and gain the status of a demon lord. The protagonist looks at her with an indifferent face, thinking that every word she says is nonsense, asking if she hit her head. Lucia smiles, tenses her eyebrows. She says that this is not all and the guy calls himself a god. The girl sits on the ground in front of Wu Zhu, exclaiming, "Is he really a god?" 100% he answers that yes, he is really a god and he needs to complete the task, and in his thoughts he wonders how she twisted this whole situation. The protagonist stands, looking menacingly at Lucia and thinking that she shouldn't be saying that, because he just needs to kill her. The man has sweat rolling down his face and asks what she means by God when Wu Zhu shouts that he actually missed and wanted to attack that crazy woman. The protagonist raises his hand up, and the man asks if this is true, but that Wu Zhu exclaims that he is on his side, and that he should get rid of her in the most specific way. The man turns sharply towards the guy, asking if he really thought that he would let him get away with all this. He quickly approaches Wu Zhu. He looks down at the guy, saying that he appeared out of nowhere, that the man didn't even have time to introduce himself. Stone blocks appear behind the man and he asks if the guy knows that there is an original version of the game and you need a key to use it. The sun shines on the blonde man and he says that he is the user who made this and his name is Jason Putter, CEO of Just One, asking if the guy has heard of one. Wu Zhu gets into a fighting stance, asking about Just One, wondering if it could be the name of a famous security company. He looks at the man with blue eyes, thinking that he definitely heard the name Jason Poulter. The silhouette of a man shines in space, and the protagonist thinks that it seems that he was one of the best players, a player with a high rank. The girl shows her thumbs up, and Wu Zhu thinks that he made a lot of money on quests with great risk, wondering what this same company Just One means. The protagonist opens his mouth wide in shock, asking if this is the CEO, and he managed to arrange dispute with a person of high rank. The man's pupils shrink with anger, saying that when the guy heard his name, the expression on his face did not change at all. Wu Zhu stands looking at the man with an emotionless face, due to the Iron Mask skill that allows him to maintain an impassive face in any situation, thinking that he is actually so scared that the hairs on his body stand on end. The man raises his hand at the guy, saying that for worms like him, beating is the best lesson. Blue magic forms around the man's hand and the protagonist thinks that he has gone too far because he dared to attack a high-ranking player, calling himself a non-entity. The man's fist touches Wu Zhu's face as he thinks about how every day is a test of survival and he can't believe it. The protagonist's hand clenches into a fist and he thinks that he cannot use the power that Lucia gave him, because he will be persecuted if he kills the player. The brunette stands with a surprised face, and Wu Zhu thinks that Zero is loyal to orders, and he will not act until he gives him a signal. Lucia gives a thumbs up, winking, and the protagonist thinks that she needs to be killed. The man punches Wuzhu in the face as he wonders that the last thing he has left is a half-eaten glass of ramen. The protagonist dodges the man's blow. Wuzhu arches down as the man tries to hit him and wonders what's going on. Stones fly over the protagonist and the man wonders if the guy was able to dodge his blow, also from a very strange angle. Wuzhu is surrounded by blue magic and wonders that he seems to be flying, and has his body really disappeared, leaving only his soul. The man gets an angry expression on his face and asks that he really succeeded if he was able to dodge once, and the protagonist wonders that he even thought he died. The man waves his fist and shouts for Wuzhu to receive a combination of deadly attacks, and the guy thinks that he was able to dodge this too. Threads sparkle around the protagonist and he reflects that he seems to understand the secret of his movement. The brunette moves his hands, to which the threads are attached, and the protagonist realizes that in fact Zero has threads wrapped around his body. There are threads around Wuzhu's head, arms and legs, and he realizes that this technique is used to rescue hostages and it is called string puppetry. The man bites his lip angrily, asking if this worm was able to dodge again, and the protagonist thinks that the situation is further complicated by an angry Jason. Wuzhu dodges the man's multiple blows, saying that maybe he and the man could talk, and the man yells at him to shut up. The guy tenses his eyebrows and approaches Jason, asking if what is happening is not the murder of a player. Is he really ready to ruin his career so easily? The blonde takes Wuzhu by the cloak, saying that it's not for him to worry about him, because in such a situation, it doesn't bother him. The man smiles and clenches his fist, saying that they can call it a one-on-one fight, because he was the first to attack and hit him, and therefore there can be no complaints. Wuzhu points his finger at Jason, asking if he could legally kill him then. The man swings his fist at the guy, saying that this is really so, an idiot, because these are the rules of the fight. The blonde guy punches Wuzhu right in the face when he says that if this is true, then he is very lucky. Zero stands surprised behind the rock, while the protagonist thinks that he forgot about the rules of duels because he was fixated on the daily task. Lucia lies on the ground and smiles, saying that it turns out that the stupid subordinate is helping him. Jason punches Wuzhu in the face while he thinks this is the right time to act. The protagonist punches the man. The blonde looks down in surprise. Pink energy emanates from the site of impact. Wuzhu extends his hand, telling Jason to hold on tight, because now he will be in space. The blonde is pierced by pink energy. His armor crumples under the impact. Stones fly in different directions. A flash of pink energy is seen on planet Earth. The man clenches his teeth. The pillar of pink energy disintegrates and Jason screams. Stones and scraps of cloth fall from the sky. A flash appears on planet Earth. The planet moves through space. The sun is shining on a cloudy sky. Wuzhu looks up in confusion at the man, who says he has no words and is surprised by this destructive power. The protagonist's fist rests against Jason's armor, who says that such a blow will not cause him the slightest harm. A beam of energy shoots out of the man. The energy dissipates and Jason shouts that this is impossible. The protagonist holds his fist on the man's chest and reflects that he never thought that the power received from Lucius would become useless so quickly. He averts his eyes, thinking that who needs her then and has only ruined his life. Lucia lies on the ground and Zero hides while Wuzhu thinks, cursing the demon lord. He wonders what the guy is doing there. Jason holds the protagonist by the cape, asking if he is in trouble and is surprised that his attacks aren't working. The man raises his fist, saying that Wuzhu is trying so hard not to change his expression. The guy points to his face, asking if this is the facial expression, saying that this is a feature of the Iron Mask skin from the store, which allows him to keep an impassive face in any situation, wondering if this misunderstanding really happened because of his face. Jason raises his fist to strike, saying he doesn't care and will just smash it. Wuzhu squints his eyes a little and furrows his eyebrows, saying that tearing the skin off your face is a little cruel, wondering what the punishment is for losing in this fight. The protagonist raises his head in surprise, looking at the system window, which says that the winner receives the enemy's gold and a random item, and the loser deletes his character. A man hits a guy with a swing while he thinks that he is in danger of having his character removed. Stones fly in different directions. The two adventurers fight with swords, and Wuzhu thinks that if both players agree, then they can fight each other. A guy lies under another man, screaming that he has lost and that he should spare him, while the protagonist thinks that in this case, killing the player is considered legal, and sometimes the stakes increase, even to the point of deleting the player character. The guy has blue magic in front of him and he says that it could be a draw, asking if they really couldn't agree. Wuzhu points at the man's fist, saying that he doesn't have time to level up a new character, and will have to win first. He extends his hand with his index finger. The man's hand is held back by a white thread, and Wuzhu thinks that usually no one can interfere in a one-on-one fight. The brunette pulls the threads towards himself, and the protagonist reflects that Zero, having got here from another dimension, became an exception. Wuzhu throws Jason's hand away from him, wondering what Zero is doing to block. He clenches his hand into a fist, thinking that he is striking at this time. He punches the man in the chest, wondering if he'll hold back a little this time since the blonde won't be able to ignore the damage again. Jason is surprised and drool drips from his mouth. The man is thrown back by a beam of bright energy and shouts for Wuzhu to wait. The sun is visible among the mountains. Energy passes through the middle of the canyon and a man screams loudly. A beam of energy passes across the surface of the earth. It passes through the middle of the planet with bright light. A beam of energy passing through the planet returns back. The trail on the ground closes and the man stands. Jason stands in a defensive stance, asking what that was. He frowns excitedly, saying that he seems to have flown all over the earth, and his attack power is simply insane. Wuzhu stands in a fighting stance, and the man asks that perhaps he is the real threat here. The sun's rays illuminate the protagonist's face as he says that he still hasn't done any damage. Jason shakes himself off, looking at the guy in surprise, asking if he really doesn't know about his ability, since an advertising banner even appeared on the main page of the game. Dust settles between the two men, and Wuzhu says that he doesn't care about people of high rank, and that the man asks that he really doesn't care about ranks with his strength. A wide smile appears on Jason's face and he says that he understood him. Apparently the protagonist decided that this would be enough for any situation, and that's why he became so frivolous. Wuzhu's face lights up and he says that's not the point. The man points at the guy, saying that he sees his thoughts very clearly even from there, because people with an inferiority complex are easy to notice. Wuzhu winces and drops his hands when the man says that they get excited about even the slightest glimmer of hope, worry a lot and make mistakes. Tears appear on his face and he asks what the man is trying to say, asking him to stop hitting where it hurts, wondering if Jason is so right that it's not even fair. The man comes closer to the guy, saying that so be it, he will explain to him, because it will not affect the result. He waves two fingers, saying vision. The number 0 appears above Jason's head and he asks if the guy knows this mode, saying that it displays damage in numbers. Wuzhu looks at the man in surprise, saying that yes, he knows that this is an expensive paid item. Jason leans closer to the protagonist's face, telling him to try to hit him again, and he will have to break his will to do so. A fist hits the man's chin as he says it's because he's a high-ranking player. Pink energy bursts out of Jason's head. A column of energy rushes upward. This energy bursts upward like a fountain. Wuzhu holds his hand up. He looks at the man questioningly, asking if he only did 1 point of damage. Jason clenches his teeth in a smile, saying that this is true and any attack against him only deals 1 point of damage. The silver key shines with brilliance and the man says that this is one of the limited key abilities of the game Another World. Jason smiles ominously at the guy, saying that it's all about his skill, which has only one name. The man extends his fist to Wuzhu, saying that he has 120,000 health points. Jason hits, and the guy dodges, while the man asks what will end first, his health points or the protagonist's life. Wuzhu extends his hand to the man. He touches it with his finger, dealing 1 point of damage. The guy dodges, touching the man while he asks if the protagonist is so scared that he can't even answer. Lucia stands watching the battle, asking if all damage is equal to 1, calling the ability pathetic. The girl clenches her hand into a fist and says that this is just a way to be beaten to death, and nothing more. Lucia and Zero raise their hands and the Demon Lord shouts, "Go Demon Army," and Wuzhu wonders that they are too close and cannot be kept together. The guy dodges the man's attacks, thinking that he thinks the same way, and after checking everything became clear. He touches the armor with his index finger and wonders how Jason takes 1 point of damage even after a normal touch. He dodges attacks by touching the man with his finger and thinks that he is receiving damage because he swings too hard. The guy's eyes sparkle and he thinks that in other words, even a cat's blow will take damage. He closes his arms from Jason and says that in the second volume of Kalos, the boss was wearing golden armor, and it automatically restored 1 health point every 0.001 seconds. The man looks at the guy in surprise and asks if he really said about golden armor. Wuzhu closes his eyes and crosses his arms, saying that he already knows how to resist such a force. He looks the other way with his blue eyes, addressing Zero, telling him to go into attack mode. The brunette sighs loudly and unties the threads. White threads shine in the sun. They break up into small pieces in the air. White particles fly from the sky towards Jason, and Wuzhu says that he is using the deadly winter rain on a summer night skill. White particles rush past the guy, and he thinks that scattering mana with the help of scattered wire is a powerful skill at the level of 2 killer stars. Jason looks in surprise at the fragments flying at him, while the protagonist thinks that first he needs to win this fight. White particles rain down on the man, causing him units of damage. Jason tries to protect himself from the fragments with his hands, saying that something really irritates him. He looks at his feet on the ground, saying that this skill has a knockback effect. The fragments shatter on the ground, and the man says that it will be difficult to close the distance. Wuzhu deftly dodges the fragments, saying that Jason is surprised early, because he deals more than 1,000 attacks per minute. White shards reflect in the blue eyes, and he says that this means this fight will last about 10 minutes, asking if the man has figured out what to answer. Jason leans in, excitement evident on his face, and asks if he only has 10 minutes, saying that he wanted to know more about the gold armor. Wuzhu extends his hand into the air and says that this item was used by the boss in the second volume of another work by the same author, Androgymed. Magic rays rush towards the armored silhouette, and the protagonist says that thanks to super fast recovery, health points did not decrease significantly even under powerful attacks. White fragments fly towards the man from the sky, and Wuzhu says that this effect is a bit like his skill. The winter rain on a summer night killed him. Jason covers himself with his hands from the fragments, saying that now he understands. The guy turns his head at the man, asking why he became interested in this. Is he really a fan of the author? Jason shields himself from the fragments and, smiling broadly, says that this is not so at all, and he simply knows a person who is capable of creating such a legendary item. The pieces land near the man, and he says that's why he can't lose. Wuzhu is surprised and looks at him. Jason throws the pieces away from him and shouts that he has something to say to the protagonist. A wide smile appears on his face, and he says that he already wears that same golden armor. The bright light from the windows illuminates the street, and the guy asks what the man means. Wuzhu clenches his teeth while lying in the virtual reality glasses and asks if the concept from Kalos was used in the game Another World. Sweat rolls down his face, and he asks if his father did this. A blue book with a lock on it and the name Another World floats in space, and the protagonist thinks that this is the original source of the game and the last work of his father, which he did not read. The man waves his hand, and Wuzhu thinks that it seemed to him that this book was precisely the cause of his death. The guy grits his teeth, wondering if his father was reusing a concept from another book. The fragments hit the man, and he asks why Wuzhu doesn't react. Jason straightens up as debris falls from the sky, and he says that the golden armor the guy was talking about is what he's wearing right now. The man raises his two-fingered hands to his head, asking if he wants to see first to check using double vision. He shows the set unit, asking if it was convincing as his health is restored. Jason points to his armor and says that it is the golden armor's special ability that gives 1 hit point every 0.1 seconds. He waves his hands, asking if his incessant attacks will have any effect, because when combined with skill only 1, he becomes invulnerable. Jason, with a smile on his face, asks how he is, if he still wants to fight. Wuzhu receives a notification about a new letter. He looks at the notification of a new letter from Suck in surprise. He clicks on the notification, in which the girl writes, asking where he is, because they need to talk. He turns his blue eyes to the other side. Zero persistently swings his arm while Wuzhu thinks that this attack seems to have been a waste of time. The brunette flinches and is surprised when the guy says he can stop. Zero looks questioningly at the protagonist, and he says that the outcome of the fight is a foregone conclusion. Jason furrows his eyebrows and smiles, asking if the guy won't attack anymore. Wuzhu turns to him, saying that this attack was truly useless and ineffective. A slight smile appears on Lucia's face. She frowns and says with a smile that finally this fool understands. Wuzhu furrows his brows on his face and says that he is confident that the fight can be finished with 1 blow. White magic shards fly from the sky as Jason shouts, asking if Wuzhu hasn't figured it out yet. The fragments hit the man's armor, and he says that his key ability only 1 reduces all damage to 1, and the legendary item golden armor restores 1 hit point every 0.1 seconds. Jason, gritting his teeth and smiling, says that this combination makes him theoretically invulnerable, asking why the guy doesn't want to admit it. Wuzhu stands looking at the system notification about the letter while the man asks if this is the usual denial of reality that is common to all losers. Jason stands in the rain of shrapnel and screams, asking why he isn't answering him. Wuzhu looks at the system window, in which it is written that Sakai is writing to him, asking where he is, because they need to talk. to which the guy says that he understands. The protagonist looks at the message in surprise and says that this attack is a waste of time. He turns, extending his hand towards the brunette, telling Zero to stop. Wuzhu looks sideways at the guy as the pieces fall and says that this battle is already over. Zero shakes his head excitedly. Shards flash near the protagonist's face and he says that this is enough, and the brunette did everything he could. Zero's pupils shrink and sweat runs down his face. White fragments fly, breaking on the rocks. The few remaining fragments fly from the sky. Wuzhu stands opposite the man and there are stones between them. Lucia carefully watches the protagonist. The sun illuminates her face and she sighs. Jason makes a surprised face and asks if Wuzhu won't attack him anymore. The dust under the guy's feet clears and he says that this is really so, and he realized that attacks at such speed will not be effective. Jason's face becomes darker and, frowning, he asks, "Really?" Then the guy thinks quickly. But he remembers that the character's removal was at stake, and he is not going to show mercy. Wuzhu stands in surprise as the sun shines on the mountains, asking what. Zero quickly runs up to Lucia, who looks at the guy in surprise. The brunette points his finger at Wuzhu, worried, to which the girl tells him not to fuss. Lucia turns her gaze to Zero and asks if they have anything to worry about since his spirit is not broken. Wuzhu stands with his hands clenched into fists, and the girl says that he has become even calmer, so they should trust him at least once. The eyebrows on the protagonist's face frown and he says that it seems their thoughts do not agree, because he came to the conclusion that he won. Jason's pupils shrink and he looks at the guy with anger when he says that, unlike a man, he is ready to be lenient. Wuzhu's face darkens, and his blue eyes look at the blonde and he asks if they can settle for a draw, thinking that this is not the worst option. Jason grits his teeth in anger, saying to hell with this outcome. He swings at the guy using magic and yells at him to shut up and die. Wuzhu stands looking at the system notification window and thinks that he hesitated because he was afraid of causing trouble. But it looks like it's time to end this. He puts his finger to the window, which says 999 or more unread messages. Jason raises his other hand, smiling as he asks if the guy would open his email panel in this situation, saying he doesn't think he has enough time to write a will. Wuzhu looks at the system window with blue eyes, saying that he is just trying to unblock spam. Stones break next to the guy's head while he says that there are 999 unread letters, thinking that over 10 years more than 1 million letters have accumulated in spam. With his finger, he puts a tick in the system window, where it says that you can mark all letters as read, and Wuzhu thinks about marking them all at once. Jason, with an angry look on his face, punches the guy next to him and yells that now is not the time to read spam, asking what he's talking about. Lucia folds her arms over her chest and smiles and says that she said that they had nothing to worry about. Wuzhu gives his thumbs up, thinking that the man's attacks are simple enough to dodge even without Zero's help. He wraps his arms around Jason's arm while he is surprised, and the protagonist thinks that there is only one thing left to do, to grab. The man raises his hand with the protagonist hanging on it and asks what the hell the guy is trying to do. Wuzhu, who is hanging on Jason's arm, says that he is clinging and the spam will come soon. The man swings at the guy, making an angry expression. He says that he's really talking about this again, to which the protagonist says that since he won, he can tell him some information that others don't need to know. Wuzhu's face is illuminated by the rays of the sun and he says that this iron mask has caused a lot of misunderstandings, but in fact it hides his real face. Jason looks at the guy in shock as a static appears on his face and he says that he started acting after his family was destroyed and made the character when he was filled with hatred. The man gets excited and sweat appears on his face when Wuzhu says that's why he can show his real face. The protagonist has a crazy wide smile on his face with small pupils and says that Jason was so rude when he called him a loser, and that he should look at a man with an inferiority complex and die. The man raises his hand to his face and shouts, asking what he just saw, indignant that his eyes hurt. Zero looks behind the shocked Lucia, who screams and asks what the hell. She smiles and a blush appears on her cheeks. She says that it was unexpected and she likes such an ugly face, because it is perfect for the great demon lord from the underworld. Lucia looks at the protagonist in surprise, asking if he might be a candidate. Wuzhu hangs on the hand of a blonde man who is holding his head and the girl asks what happens after 30,000 years. She should marry him. The static dissipates on the guy's face and he thinks that he has already spent too much time. Jason opens one of his eyes when Wuzhu tells him to move his eyes lower than hers. The man excitedly waves his hand, shouting that this loser scared him very much, and now he won't die so easily. He swings, gathering magic in his fist and shouts that now he hits with full power, and will crush the guy into dust. Wuzhu climbs a little higher up his arm as the man shouts that he's using Excalibur, and the guy says he's all set now. The protagonist looks at the blow aimed at him and says that spam will now begin to arrive, and therefore there will be more than 1 million notifications, and the man was not surprised by them. Jason swings his hand, shouting that why, even on the verge of deletion, spam bothers him. Blue magic lights up Wuzhu's face as he says he wouldn't be bothered by notifications. The guy's pupils dart in different directions when he receives more than 999 new emails, and he says that notifications are set to vibrate. Jason and the guy are shaking from incoming notifications and are inflicted many units of damage. The man with excitement on his face and then screams, asking what is happening. Zero excitedly watches what is happening with Lucia, and Wuzhu says that the vibration frequency is 40,000 times per second, and his body takes damage from a simple touch. The protagonist's face darkens and he frowns, saying that 1 million spam emails can kill a man instantly. Jason's mouth opens in shock and sweat runs down his face as Wuzhu says that this deadly technique will be called Jason's Deadly Vibration Spam Yowdy. A loud explosion occurs near the man. Clouds of smoke fly out from it, which suffers more vibration damage. The planet shakes and trembles from incoming notifications. Jason's face contorts in strong vibration and he screams. Rocks fly near Wuzhu's face as the man screams. Jason's damage output is beyond the bounds of the galaxy. The impact of the vibration of 1 million notifications was terrifying. Damage rushes through the cosmic debris, causing huge ripples throughout the universe in an instant. Eyes are appearing on the space rock, and a dark egg has awakened that could be the cause of disaster for this game. Dark silhouettes appearing from the surface of the planet will threaten the existence of the solar system, turning it into dust. Lucia puts her hand under her chin and says he still looked stupid, but he was so cool. Zero looks at Wuzhu excitedly and trembles. The hero's hearts beat faster. Cracks began to appear throughout Jason's body, the end of the one-on-one fight. A health bar appears above him, showing 0 out of 12,000. The guy scatters stones in different directions. The sun's rays illuminate the canyon. The protagonist turns around. Purple particles fly around him and he asks if he really won, and Wuzhu becomes the winner of the fight. He turns his head towards the sparkling object. In front of him lies an armor that sparkles in the sun and he shouts that this is a dropped item, which is golden armor, a legendary item that gives 100,000 health points and restores 1 health point every 0.1 seconds and adds 3 slots. Wuzhu takes the shining armor into his hands, saying that this item will help strengthen the defense, which is still unknown. The heroes approach the protagonist, who is putting on the armor, shouting that he will put it on now. Zero and Lucia look at Wuzhu in shock when the girl says he's doing great. Tears start flowing from their eyes and they start laughing very loudly. Zhu has armor on his body, from which only his head and arms and legs protrude, and he tells them not to laugh, wondering why this armor did not suit him. The clouds fly over the canyon, and the guy screams for them to stop laughing and help him, to which Lucia screams that Wuzhu is also the greatest joker in the demon world. Evening light falls on the walls of the school. Light spills along the corridors and illuminates a sign with text about the student council room, from which comes the question that now he is really ignoring messages. Sakai stands near the window while her friends are lying in virtual reality glasses and says that she is already worried about those initial data and other things, and that idiot Wuzhu does nothing but complete daily tasks while at home. The girl looks at her phone screen in surprise. Sakai holds his phone, pink in color, as screams come out of it saying it's Jason. The girl gets sweaty on her face and excitedly says that they are at school, and that he should keep his voice down. And the man says that he understands and has to tell her something, that he was defeated by an ominous entity. Sook's pupils constrict and she looks down, screaming and asking if this happened to Jason. The blonde stands up and takes off her virtual reality glasses, crying out that she can't concentrate on the game, to which the pink-haired girl turns to her questioningly. The blonde gets up from her seat, blushes and shouts out, asking, because Sakai said that she had been close to Wuzhu since childhood, saying that then she should know where he lives. Then he holds her glasses in one hand while clenching her other hand and shouts that she is so busy thinking about him that she can't concentrate and her heart feels like it's exploding, which is too much to bear. The sky is reflected in the school windows and the blonde shouts that she is going to confess to him today, to which Sakai screams for her to wait. The guy grabs the excited Minhee's hand. He pushes her shoulder away from him. Minhee falls beside him, screaming. The blonde lies in the virtual reality glasses, worrying, while Sakai screams on the phone, asking if Jason has won. Wuzhu, with his sparkling eyes surrounded by roses, asks if Minhee is okay. Sakai looks in surprise at the blonde, who suddenly stands up and shouts that she can't stop thinking about it, to which the other girl turns to her questioningly. A blush appears on Minha's cheeks and she, holding virtual reality glasses, shouts that she will go right now and confess her feelings to Wuzhu. Suk's face becomes worried and she asks if her friend has gone crazy. Light from the windows of multi-story buildings illuminates the night streets. The windows of the protagonist's apartment glow. The corridors of the landing are illuminated by lamps and a voice can be heard asking what is happening. Minhee, with a blush on her cheeks and her hands clenched into fists, tells the guy to wait a little, because it seems she heard him wrong. Wuzhu gets worried and scratches the back of his head with his hand, saying that her confession of feelings does not mean that they will date, asking why he would even do this. Minhee stands in front of the open door of the apartment, saying that since she confessed, maybe they could try, to which the guy replied that now is not the time for jokes. The door slams shut in front of the girl and she asks what jokes he is talking about, to which Wuzhu replies that he needs to complete a quest and they can see each other later. The protagonist abruptly opens the door, leaning out to Minhee and tells her not to switch to another errand boy because of this, because he will be sad if she does this. The blonde stands with a blush on her cheeks and trembles when he says that they will see each other tomorrow at school. Minhee grits her teeth in anger and the veins in her neck swell. She moves one of her legs, asking if the guy decided to play with her. The blonde runs down the dark hallway of the house, screaming that everything is fine and that he should just wait. She picks up the phone, dialing someone's number. Tears appear in her eyes. She clenches her teeth and asks how Wuzhu dared to reject her, saying that she will not forgive him for this. The windows of the panel houses are burning in the night city, and Minhee screams for Jihai to gather the guild members, and she doesn't care, they urgently need to hurry. Wuzhu looks back at the apartment doorway and asks if she has really left. He raises his hand to his chest with worry on his face and asks if that was too harsh, wondering if Minhee won't make him run errands more often. Wuzhu puts the virtual reality glasses on his head, saying that no, that's not something to worry about right now, and maybe he would agree if she at least came with lunch from the store. He turns his gaze to the other side in surprise. The door opens slightly, and the light of lamps appears from it, and the protagonist wonders if she really returned with food. Because if so, then perhaps he will agree to a relationship with her. The guy excitedly opens the apartment door, saying that he has already thought about her proposal several times. The pupils of his eyes narrow and he looks at the man in shock. A woman with a fan and a wide evil smile stands in front of him, whom he calls the owner of the apartment, and she asks him how many times she has already told him. The moon illuminates a multi-story building, and the woman screams, asking how many times she will have to tell the guy to pay for his apartment, to which he screams that he will do it soon. The turning point was approaching. The sun rises in the clear sky among the rocks. This is Wyvern Canyon, and Wuzhu thinks that his body endured a lot last time. Zero runs up to the protagonist while Lucia, who is standing a little further away, says that he is late, calling him the #1 soldier of her demon army. She folds her arms over her chest, sweat rolls down her face, and she says that no, now he is her future husband, and such thoughts make her a little nervous. A green flame lights up near Wuzhu's body and he says that she can talk as much as she wants, because Zero's health has been restored, so they can get down to business. His brows furrow and he extends his hand, telling the brunette to kill her. Zero opens his eyes and mouth wide in shock, crying out questioningly. The eyebrows on Wuzhu's face frown and he thinks that of course even after recovery he is at the 1-star level, but the chances of winning are quite high. Jason holds a crying Lucia by the neck, who screams that she is against violence, and the guy thinks that this is quite possible, because he saw a man beat her. A worried woman hangs on chains on her arms and legs while the protagonist wonders that before the Demon Lord came into the game, the heroes sealed away all of her powers. Wuzhu raises his hand up and tells Zero to kill her, thinking that she is very weak now. This is the turning point. The guy points at the woman with an outstretched hand and thinks that he will get rid of the terrible curse and poverty by destroying Lucia. Zero grabs the surprised Wuzhu's hand. The brunette pulls Lucia to him, holding both of their hands. Wuzhu turns his gaze to Zero in surprise, wondering what he was up to. The brunette with a blush on his cheeks folds his hands and shakes them, while the protagonist thinks that perhaps this gesture means reconciliation or so. Wuzhu's face darkens and he says in a cold tone that this is ridiculous and he should have taught the guy more carefully. The protagonist swings his hand next to the surprised heroes, thinking that this was also part of his plan. He gathers pink magic in his fist and thinks that if Zero's attack didn't work, then he will have to intervene himself. Wuzhu raises his hand to hit Lucia and thinks that they can see how the Demon Lord copes with the power that she gave him. The stones fly in different directions due to the power of the swing. A column of air forms on the surface of planet Earth. She rushes higher and higher, and the satellite that was near her breaks into pieces. The stone is thrown away by pink magic. A cloud of dust forms behind Lucia. Wuzhu looks at his hand, on which there is a thread, saying that it really is a thread. He turns his gaze the other way, asking if Zero really did this. The brunette is worried and shaking his hands, shaking them, to which Wuzhu shouts that they are not at the stage when they can make peace. The guy looks carefully at his hand clenched into a fist and asks how a killer can even think about such a thing as reconciliation, thinking that even Zero, who has only 1 star, blocked his attack. Wuzh takes a step to the side, and he is surrounded by magical pink power, and wonders if this really means that the power that the girl gave him is gradually weakening. The worried guy looks at his hands in real life and says that this makes sense and it is impossible to constantly maintain such overwhelming power. Wuzhu takes a step with one of his feet, thinking that then he can go back to the very beginning and complete the daily task. He touches his toe to the ground, thinking it's time to start. He flies up from the earth, leaving a beam of pink energy and screaming that why is this happening. Lucia puts her hand around Wuzhu's neck, saying that she likes that he is trying to entertain her, to which the guy asks where she put her hands. She smirks and looks at the guy coughing up blood, saying that it seems like calling someone with his key creates a strange connection between them. Wuzhu looks at the girl in surprise, wondering how she knows about the existence of the key. The demon lord waves his hand and points forward, telling the guy to take the blessing in front of him. On the ground there is a sign made of dark stone, on which the rules of entry are written. The entry fee is 10 gold, and they are not responsible for lost things, so that they bring their own weapons and equipment, and for questions about the sale of consumables, contact Ujikomat Lucia. Zero. Lucia stands with her arms around Zero and Wuzhu's necks, saying that to prove the founding of the demon army, a dungeon will be built, and a system window appears in front of them, on which it is written about the name Dungeon of the Labyrinth Ruins of the SSS-Ranked, the Demon Queen Lucia. The protagonist looks forward with surprised blue eyes, wondering if this is the first time he has seen something like this. Is this really a sign of the rebirth of the Demon King, which he has only heard about, which is called the dungeon? Many monsters and demons stand in front of the palace, and the guy thinks that if this is the real Lucia dungeon in front of them, then this game will be doomed. The girl holds 2 guys and looks at Wuzhu, saying that all thanks to the fact that he brought Zero, 2 people appeared in the army, which is a huge achievement, and the protagonist thinks that she is again trying to blame everything on him. The guy's expression darkens and he asks if she really wants to set him up. Wuzhu hits the girl's hand, throwing her off of him, and yells at her not to make him laugh, asking which demon army she means, because why would he be her subordinate? He clenches his hand into a fist as Lucia says that for sure her future husband needs a higher title, to which he asks if he didn't tell her to shut up and wonders if his punch had any effect on her. Wuzhu closes his blue eyes, thinking that even if he wants to stop the creation of the dungeon, nothing will work, and he is already at his limit. He bites his lip and thinks that he really won't be able to do anything, wondering if he can just quit the game. Wuzhu looks in surprise at Lucia, who crosses her arms over her chest and says that they have a lot of money left to earn, because the dungeon is also a business. The guy looks at her with an indifferent expression, wondering what the girl is talking about. A blush appears on Lucia's cheeks and she says that great opportunities will open up for them. Countless adventurers will challenge them to take over their wealth. Wuzhu watches Zero work and asks if she really has wealth, to which she replies that she does not, but she does have a dungeon and just collecting the entrance fee can change lives. Lucia turns her head towards the protagonist and says that they can sell potions to change his fate, so they need to finish the dungeon quickly. An object appears in Wuzhu's hand, which he takes from his inventory, and tells the girl not to make him laugh, asking if she really thought that he would fall for her sweet speeches. He wraps his hand around the handle, saying that he is not so simple. Wuzhu adjusts the yellow helmet on her head, saying that if she wants to convince him, then let her explain everything in detail. He wraps both hands around the shovel and asks if he should start building right now, wondering what he said about being on edge. Lucia smiles a little and Zero glances at the protagonist behind her, and Wuzhu thinks that he won't be able to stand this anymore. Clouds rush over the stone cliffs and Lucia says that she welcomes her child, to which the guy is indignant and thinks that this is how he became an official part of the demon army. The earth is divided into squares by a blue grid. The foot steps on the ground with surprise. Wuzhu lifts her leg, looking at the floor, and says that this grid will make it easier to navigate, asking where she learned this. Pink magic appears near Lucia's horns and she says that her magic eye sees everything. The magic from her horns beams in front of her and she says that her greatness does not end there. The pit in which the guys are sitting lights up with pink light from magic. Wuzhu and Zero look around excitedly and the guy asks what is happening, to which Lucia says that he will soon understand. A beam of energy comes out of the hole upward. It collides with the ground nearby, creating another hole. More rays appear from it, creating holes. The guys look out from under the hole at the girl's magic and Wuzhu says that it's amazing, to which she replies that they just need to dig according to the marks of this map. The girl's pupils shrink and she smiles, saying to remember that this is a great honor, and to start digging. The markings of a huge dungeon appear in front of the heroes and the protagonist shouts, asking if Lucia really thinks that he can dig it all up himself. The demon lord lies down on the ground nearby and yawns when Wuzhu asks what she will do, to which she replies that has this fool ever seen the demon queen work. The protagonist looks at the girl with despair in his eyes, who says that this is only the first floor and they need to hurry up and put more effort into building the dungeon, to which the guy thinks that there is a feeling that the game is only getting more difficult. The sky gradually changes its color to evening. The guy swings a shovel, throwing away the earth. He uses the markings and digs out the corridors of the dungeon. Lucia rests her head on her hand and screams, asking why so slowly. Doesn't Wuzhu want to make a lot of money anymore? The protagonist's cheeks fall in, and his face becomes gloomy, and he thinks that he is doing hard work while hungry, and it seems that he will die right here. His eyes looking towards the scream that something is there. Several flying people appear above the protagonist, and one of the figures shouts that Suck said that he will carry out a task in the Wyvern Canyon, and then shouts that he is caught. The blonde girl gets angry and clenches her hands into fists, asking that he really thinks he can reject her and leave without consequences, to which the man with red hair asks, "Who the hell is this guy digging in the ground?" Wuzhu puts the shovel next to him as Minhee shouts that she has gathered all the first years from the guild and he is preparing for punishment. The guy looks at the people in the sky and says that he is surprised at how many people there are, to which the girl screams and asks if he was really scared. She forms a ball of magic in her hands, saying that it is too late to regret. A blush appears on Minha's cheeks and she says that, however, if he likes her, then they can forget about everything, to which the man behind asks if they can really forget. Wuzhu's face becomes static and he says that he is very tired of being constantly surrounded by some kind of chaos, and she thinks that a flash of insight flashed through him. Zero's pupils shrink and looks in shock at the guy who says no. A blush appears on Lucia's face and she looks excitedly at Wuzhu, who says not at all. The guy covers his face with his hand, on which a crazy wide smile appears, and he says that if he thinks about it, he well likes it, and thinks that he will break through this limit with his head. Torches illuminate the dark dungeon. The skeleton swings his sword at the adventurer, who is shouted that support is behind him and he held out a little longer. A holy land of life-threatening adventures. A large chest contains a mountain of gold coins and the adventurers cry out that this is their reward. The greater the danger, the greater the reward from the Demon King's legacy. The dungeon labyrinths are marked on the ground and the guy thinks that creating a dungeon is a huge achievement, because they are experiencing an acute shortage of personnel. Several people fly in the air, and the blonde shouts that Wuzhu got caught and today she will teach him a lesson, to which the guy thinks that he was struck by the consequences of rejecting her confession. The protagonist covers his face with his hand, laughing and saying that just think, they themselves came to him. Lucia smiles and trembles a little with delight, saying that now there will be that same face. Wuzhu covers his face with his hand. A wide smile appears on his face and he says that they are in a critical situation, thinking that he has just found a solution. Then he uses magic in his hands and asks why he doesn't react even to so many people. Does he really only care about money? The blonde raises her hands above herself with a magic ball and asks if Wuzhu wants to have a 4-on-1 duel, and if he wins, they will grant his wish. The guy lowers his head and says that he is already tired of these fights, asking if she is really offering him to defeat 4. He puts his finger to his mouth and his eyes sparkle and he asks if they are really ready to fulfill his wish, to which Minhee shouts at him in the affirmative. The man with red hair turns his head and, worried, asks whether the guy is sure to agree, because why do they need this digger at all, to which the blonde answers him that there is something. The brunette girl with a staff in her hands is worried and asks if they will really fight 4-on-1, and the man with the bandana says that even if they win, they will be disgraced. The brunette furrows her brows, sweat running down her face as she thinks about whether Minhee was going to confess to him and now she's breaking down because he rejected her. The blonde smiles and with excitement on her face, she tells him to hurry up and decide, asking if he doesn't want to earn money. The pupils of her eyes narrow when he says yes, but not before. Wu Zhu puts her hand to her forehead, looking around and asking if it's only the first-year bullies with her, and if Sakai is here. Lightning shoots out from Minha's magic ball and she screams, asking if he really thought that she would run after someone like him. To which the guy says that it is very pathetic, thinking that they could have more hands. The blonde clenches her teeth and trembles, saying that it means he likes Suck and he was just playing with her feelings. Sweat rolls down the red-haired man's face as Minhee says she won't forgive him, and he asks if that's the whole reason, saying that it doesn't matter anyway and they should just get it over with quickly. His eyebrows frown and he shouts angrily, asking why he is standing and silent, and to speak whether he agrees or not. Wu Zhu lifts his head up and says yes, he agrees, creating a duel. The guy's face is illuminated by the sun's rays. He is Wu Zhu, who wants workers against the Van Riel Guild, who wants to meet. Several people fly in the air and a man with red hair says that he actually accepted the challenge, and a man in a bandana asks what they are even fighting for. A blush appears on Minha's cheeks and she says with a smile that it was brave, as expected from the man she likes, and therefore she will make him hers. The girl releases a ball of magical energy downwards, shouting that this is the energy of evolution. Lucia rises from the ground looking at the magic ball in surprise. Sweat rolls down her face and she excitedly says that she even forgot about this skill. Wu Zhu raises his head towards the oncoming attack and asks if it is a long-range magical attack, wondering if this fight would have ended badly without Zero. He put 2 fingers to his nose and says that now there are many solutions, turning to the brunette. Wu Zhu squints his blue eyes, looking up questioningly. A blue magic attack flashes somewhere among the mountains and the guy asks where it is even aiming, saying that this attack kind of sucks. The magic ball flies over the turtle, which is a Garbuk with the earth attribute, habitat in Wyvern Canyon, and rank F. The turtle raises its head to the ball flying from the sky. Wu Zhu looks in surprise at the turtle, from which energy projectiles are coming. In front of him, Garbuk increases in size many times over. Wu Zhu looks at the giant-sized turtle, which is the old form of Garbuk, whose attribute is Earth, the habitat of Wyvern Canyon, and has an A rank, to which the guy says that he has become bigger, asking if he has evolved into the old form. He lifts his head up, asking if Minhee is an evolutionist, a rare class in this game. The blonde tucks her hair behind her ear, asking if he's just now realized, saying that it really is and he's considered rare in the game. Then he points his finger down and shouts that he should have taken the chance when he had it, but now he should die. Garbuk cranes his neck towards Wu Zhu when the girl screams for the turtle to act, and the guy thinks that she has quite a troublesome ability. The protagonist swings his arm, thinking that close combat would be better since he turned even higher ranking wyverns into torture. He is surprised. His pupils shrink when Lucia points behind him and shouts that he should not kill this monster, but capture it and make it his subordinate. The demon lord lowers his head and says with a smile that this is a valuable resource for filling the dungeon and one of his main tasks. Wu Zhu looks at her questioningly and points to the monster ahead, asking if this huge monster really needs to be captured. Garbuk slams his head into the ground as the protagonist wonders if she's gone crazy, since he's already in a fight against 4 people. Wu Zhu lowers his head to the turtle and wonders that if you are not a professional hunter, then to capture it you need to weaken it until you lose consciousness. But how should he hold back his attack, which kills with 1 blow? His blue eyes look the other way and he wonders if he needs to do something then. Wu Zhu raises his head to the flying people and asks what they are doing. He reaches out and waves his fingers, asking if they're just going to watch, telling them to attack, wondering if maybe he can use them for this attack. Then he and the brunette sigh and the man in the bandana pulls out a gun, saying that the guy is very annoying. The man with red hair swings his sword, saying that now it's clear why Minhee wants to keep him around, asking if he can tell him why. Then from both sides attack Wu Zhu, who shouts asking why, to which the red-haired man shouts that it's because he's annoying as hell. The protagonist blocks their attacks with his 2 fingers while the man with red hair screams for him to die already. Wu Zhu lowers the fingers on his hand, saying that this is impossible. He blocks the magical energy that moves him backwards. He turns, aiming the attack at the turtle. The guys launch more attacks at Wu Zhu, who directs them at the turtle. Garbuk's health points are rapidly decreasing. Wu Zhu redirects the men's attacks at the monster while the red-haired man shouts, asking what he doesn't like, to which the guy thinks that this should help him with the capture. Minhee points down excitedly and turns to the brunette, asking why her evolutionary beast keeps taking damage, telling Jihai to attack too. The brunette excitedly points her staff with magic, shouting that okay, now she is attacking with an ice arrow. Wu Zhu notices how ice shards begin to fall on them from above. He waves his arms, collecting the fragments and wonders what a long-range attack is now. Wuzhu steps on the snow-white thread, thinking that this is even good, because it will speed up the process a little. He directs all attacks at the turtle. He dodges the attacks and says it's getting a little difficult. Wuzhu looks in surprise at the attacks that are aimed at him. He dodges the turtle's bite, and the blows hit her in the neck, and he thinks that he needs to find the right moment. Wuzhu puts his hand to his mouth and asks, "Is this all?" He yawns right in front of the men, saying that he is bored, and they ask him why. A man with red hair swings his sword, calling for a phoenix, saying that all he did was evade, and this goes beyond all limits. The man with the bandana folds his hands and says with irritation that it's okay, so be it, since he's tired of living. The men swing attacks at Wuzhu, yelling for him to gain their main skill. They attack the protagonist at the same time. The red-haired man shouts Phoenix Strike, and the man with the bandana Moon Swing. Wuzhu waves his hand, saying this is great. He gathers the magic of their attacks into one whirlwind. Wuzhu spins a whirlwind of magic above his head. The man with red hair is worried and furrows his eyebrows, shouting that he does not understand what is happening. The man with the bandana opens his mouth wide and sweat runs down his face. He screams. Jihyo's eyes widen in surprise. Minhee gets worried and smiles and says it's bad luck. Wuzhu gathers the magic into one ball, right in front of the turtle's face. He looks closely at the glowing ball and thinks that he cannot rely on other people's attacks every time to fill the dungeon with monsters. A dark figure stands among the silhouettes rising from the surface, and the guy thinks that if he manages to summon some guy, then even monsters crushed into powder can be subdued. A golden key is shining on Wuzhu's neck, and he thinks that the key is at hand and maybe he should try to do it. His blue eyes look the other way, and he thinks that he needs to end this first, turning to Zero. Wuzhu launches a fire magic ball. Zero pulls the snow-white thread. The wire is pulled straight in front of the fireball. He pulls back the thread, cutting into it. Wuzhu and the guys look at the ball while flying in front of the monster. Zero jerks his hand. The fireball flies off the wire. This projectile hits the monster, knocking it up. Pink lightning appears behind Lucia, and she screams that not this. Lightning strikes the ground, throwing rocks away. The red-haired guy and the man with the bandana look to the side in surprise. Minhee extends her hand excitedly, shouting that she feels sorry for her evolution beast. Wuzhu opens the inventory menu and scrolls through it, saying that everything is fine and all that's left is to grab it. He looks up questioningly, holding the ball in his hand. A huge monster appears among the dust and fragments of stones. Wuzhu raises his head, saying, "Damn Lucia, how could she cause such a thing?" A huge monster with yellow eyes appears in front of the protagonist, and the guy screams, because this is a disaster from her novel. How did she manage to summon this transcendental creature? The monster turns his gaze. His name is the Nightmare Cody, whose attribute, habitat, and rank are unknown. But his appearance is known because he is the god Basalt. A large monster stands towering over the canyon, and someone says that Basalt is a god from the east, asking whether it is fair to start with a size of 1.5 kilometers. Sakai stands with a blank and uninterested look and says that she came here because Jason was defeated, asking if it was because of the large number of monsters whose actions cannot be predicted. Lucia's horns glow and she smiles a little, and the pink-haired girl says that this is definitely the final boss of the novel Survival of the World's Strongest, Demon Queen Lucia. The brunette pulls his thread, and his eyes glow, and Sakai says that this is the Killer Zero from the novel. Today even the killer fell in love. On the ground there is a marking of the dungeon rooms, and the girl says that the dungeon, the hallmark of the Demon Queen, appeared in the Wyvern Canyon. Sakai raises her hand to her mouth and looks in surprise, thinking that the most amazing thing is this dangerous creature that her foresight spoke about, and the culprit of all this chaos is the super nerd Wuzhu. The protagonist stands and the wind blows his red cloak, and the girl thinks that he is the same guy who acts as an errand boy at school. Wuzhu's face darkens and he looks up as Sakai wonders what he was thinking when he arranged all this. The people of the Van Riel Guild look at the long-necked monster, and the brunette screams, asking what it is and why there is no information about this monster. The red-haired man also screams about whether Minhee could develop this monster to such an extent. The blonde throws her head up and excitedly says that she herself doesn't know if she really did it, because there wasn't a monster of that size in the evolution handbook. The monster turns its yellow eyes to the girl, who is small in size compared to him, and who asks if this monster is actually some kind of more unique evolution. Basalt smiles a wide, fanged smile, saying that this place is familiar and he has encountered similar situations before. Lucia lies on the ground while Wuzhu tries to see what is above, and the monster continues that he was heading to the east and again found himself in an unfamiliar place. The white-haired girl smiles and waves as Basalt says it was because of that nasty creature that disrupted his journey. The monster waves one of its tails, saying that severe punishment is necessary. The men from the guild scatter in different directions from the tail, shouting what is happening and asking Minhee to give an order. Lucia rises and looks up in surprise. The monster hits the ground with its tail. The impact causes cracks to spread across the ground. The red-haired man and the man in the bandana look at the tail that left a mark in the ground and shout that this is such a strong attack, which is the level of a natural disaster. Basalt looks down with his yellow eyes and is surprised. Wuzhu uses threads to stop the monster's tail in front of Lucia. A girl with gray hair props her head up with her hand and asks with a smile if he really saved her. But recently he wanted to kill her. Is it really all because of the dungeon? The pupils of Lucia's eyes narrow and she screams with a smile, asking that money is always good. And the guy asks if she is sane. Wuzhu looks down with his blue eyes, saying that summoning such a divine beast even in her world is considered a disaster, and it's not about money, because he will simply destroy the earth. The sun illuminates the smiling face of Lucia, who asks that no, it's all about money, to which the guy shouts for her to stop behaving like that. She waves her hand while Wuzhu holds the monster's tail and she says that this is the first boss of the dungeon and it won't be fun if it gets killed easily. That's why she brought this creature. The protagonist holds Basalt's tail with his hand and listens as the girl says that the unique mob is highly valued, which means it needs to be captured. Wuzhu turns his head to Lucia and says that it's easy for her to talk about it, thinking that she knows who it is. A huge monster is hit by rays of magic and the guy thinks that it is a divine beast, which the demon queen mistakenly called to the protagonist's village, where he could destroy an entire country with one walk. Lucia smirks at Wuzhu, who wonders what's the point of capturing what is called a disaster even in her story world, thinking that she is only good in words, which is very annoying. His blue eyes look up and he thinks that there is some truth in this, because Basalt is a unique creature for this game. Wuzhu stops the monster's tail and remains silent, thinking that no one knows what item might fall out of him in the dungeon and Lucius has good knowledge of the business. Basalt looks down with his own eyes, while the guy thinks that he can only try, to which the monster says that he is interested, very interested. The huge monster furrows his eyebrows and says that to think that a mere human could block his attack, which could destroy an entire village. He turns his attention to the blonde, who is worried and asks if she can hear him, shouting that she is his owner, an evolutionist, whose ID is the wisdom of the world. Minhee smiles and points down, saying that they need to finish the fight first, so let him follow her orders and attack that red cape kid. The flying guild members are surrounded by lightning and Basalt asks how dare a simple insect talk to him, saying that she has committed an unforgivable sin. Jihai flinches from the magical energy and is surprised. Sweat begins to run down her face and she looks away, asking what it is like to feel like something is being sucked out of her. The brunette looks at her hit points and mana bars and excitedly shouts that she has run out of all magic points and will not be able to maintain flight. Several people fall down into clouds of dust. Wuzhu waves his hand, saying that this won't do. Streams of wind blow through the air and the guy says that they will need to do so much after the fight, so the bodies must be intact. The guys from the guild are caught by the wind and they scream, asking if it is a sudden gust of wind. The guys fall into the hole that the protagonist dug. Minhee lowers her eyes and looks at the markings on the ground, saying that they had a soft landing, and the man with the bandana says that they were not injured from the fall. The blonde frowned and raised her head, shouting that this huge beast, the summoned beast, did not even recognize its owner, almost killing her, asking if he was really tired of living. The guys look at the magic ball from which lightning comes and Basalt asks if they are really lucky to survive, because their punishment should be certain death. Wuzhu crouches on the thread and says that this monster can destroy this place and the dungeon, so Zero needs to hurry up. The brunette pulls the wire in his hands, screaming. Wuzhu quickly heads upstairs. Basalt looks with interest at the protagonist who has taken off. The guy waves his hand in the air and the monster says that, yes, he can recognize the person who withstood his attack. Wuzhu hits the yellow magic ball with his hand while Basalt says that he deserved it, and the guy can now talk. A large hole appears in the monster's head and he looks at it in bewilderment. The yellow ball destroys half of Basalt's muzzle. A beam of yellow energy shoots upward from planet Earth. He flies further up into space. Basalt raises his muzzle upward, looking at the formed crater in the sky and is perplexed. He looks at Wuzhu with his yellow eyes saying that this attack can pierce the sky and leave a wound on his body, asking who he is. The protagonist flies and his body is surrounded by pink magic. He asks that he really doesn't know him, saying that he has not directly encountered Lucia, so this power may be new to him. Wuzhu clenches his fist and frowns, saying that this time the blow will be weaker, only 0.001% of the full blow, and then there should be at least something left of it. Basalt touches his muzzle to the guy who is surrounded by lightning, and he tells the protagonist not to talk nonsense, and he will take all the energy. The pupils of Wuzhu's eyes become smaller and he says that he feels like he has lost something. The guys from the guild raise their heads, and the brunette says that the technique the monster uses is a technique for depleting magic points, and the red-haired man asks what she sees there. Jihai looks up with sweat dripping from her face and she says that Wuzhu will also fall when he runs out of magic points, asking, "Will everything really be okay?" The protagonist opens the status menu, pointing at it and saying that it was a technique that resets magic points. Basalt grins and looks at Wuzhu, asking what it's like to be left without magic, to which the guy replies that he doesn't know, but probably not really since he doesn't even use magic, and the monster says that he's pretending to be cool. A dark substance appears at the place where he was wounded and he says that unlike him, a person who has no powers, he has the divine blessing of endless regeneration. Sweat begins to run down Basalt's muzzle and he says that he thinks that Wuzhu may pose a threat to the gods, so it is better to finish him off. Lucia lies on the ground with a huge smile on her face and the monster says that then he needs to finish off the one who mocked him and called him here, and the main culprit will be destroyed. Wuzhu lowers his head to the surprised Basalt and says, sighing, that this is so tiring, because he was a little happy when he heard his words. The eyebrows on the guy's face frown and, looking at the monster, he says that he managed to believe that he could become weaker, asking why he is happy that he took away the magic points that the guy doesn't even use. The sun illuminates Wuzhu's face and he thought that yes, there was another reason. A black silhouette stands in the blue light and the guy thinks that only someone is necessary for the normal operation of the dungeon and the weakening of its power. Wuzhu swings his leg over Basalt, saying that okay, it's time to end this, to which the monster tells him to wait, they are talking after all. The protagonist flies in front of the excited Basalt and says that there is no talking, and the monster says that he is an immortal creature with infinite regeneration. Wuzhu raises his fist, saying he doesn't care and asking if he's ready. Sweat runs down Basalt's face and he says that this is a waste of time and gives the guy a chance to change his mind. Wuzhu's eyebrows furrow and his blue eyes glow, and he says that he already said that he doesn't need it, asking why the divine beast is talking so much. Basalt opens his mouth under the flying protagonist and says that then he will simply die. He hits Wuzhu with his tails and says that this is the final blow of the divine beast, which is called 10 Tails. Members of the Van Riel Guild look up excitedly and someone asks what is happening there, because absolutely nothing is visible because of the dust. Lucia smiles and supports her head with her hand, saying that all this is great and may come in handy in the future. Zero looks up, holding the taut wire in his hand. Suck, who is invisible, shouts excitedly that the divine beast was defeated with one blow. The sight lights up in her eye and she screams, asking what is this madness, has the game time shifted 3 years in an instant? Wuzhu is in the flaming ball that Basalt summoned. Power granted by the demon queen Lucia. The magic of this ball bursts directly at the monster, even at the level of 0.001% of the maximum. Basalt's muzzle shatters into small pieces. It carried such destructive power that even the divine beast was defeated with one blow. Pink energy sweeps around the Earth. Streams of magic rush around planet Earth. The impact of the impact accelerated the rotation of the Earth. The planet made 1095 revolutions. 3 years flashed by in an instant. A bright blue light shines through the darkness. A small particle appears from this set and Basalt says that it looks like he has met his end. Wuzhu looks at the little monster, who says that it was an amazing opponent. But even a completely destroyed god will resurrect in 3 years. The protagonist holds 2 halves of a ball near Basalt, which says that eternity never fades. He says with an impassive face that it's time for capture. Wuzhu closes the ball in his hands and the system window indicates that the capture is complete. The protagonist punches the air with his fist, a direct blow to the universe. Planet Earth rotates on its axis due to magic. Streams of magic emanate from it and it rotates. The blow will speed up the rotation of the in-game planet. The hands on the larger clock begin to spin at great speed, and the blow made 3 years fly by in an instant. A crowd of people sits in front of a screen with a lot of error notifications and someone screams, asking what is going on. The statistics are not displayed. Someone else screams that 3 dragons have appeared on the hellish cliff. Someone else screams that goblins have invaded the eastern region. All regions are overrun with monsters. The people of the Van Riel Guild are surrounded by a crowd of wyverns and they are screaming, asking what it was and why the wyverns were suddenly reborn. Minhee looks around excitedly and Jihai brings a blue potion to him. They shout that they don't have magic points and they definitely can't cope with so many wyverns. The guys turn their heads at Wushu who has appeared. The protagonist swings his limbs, emitting bright pink energy. He folds his hands on his chest into a cross. He lands with the help of Zero's thread and asks if the guys were almost hurt just now. Wushu's face is illuminated by sunlight and he looks at the people, saying that he will try to quickly sort things out so he can start working, asking if they want to continue the fight. The 3-year battle has come to an end. Lucia and Zero watch the guys from the Van Riel Guild working, and it becomes clear that the winner of the fight is Wushu and his reward is the workers. Torches illuminate the entrance to a dark dungeon. The moon illuminates a black stone tablet on which the rules for entering the dungeon are written. Above the entrance, a sign with a dungeon lights up pink. The heroes stand in front of the dungeon entrance and Wushu says that they are finally finished and Lucia says that this is his achievement for which he deserves praise. The protagonist turns his gaze to the man who shouts to him. Minhee, covered in dirt, points her finger at Wushu and screams, asking how dare he make them work like that, shouting that they will have another fight. The blonde turns her surprised gaze to the guild member, who tells the girl to stop already and Minhee asks why. 2 men and a girl stand covered in mud, trembling with fatigue. The red-haired man says that he dealt with the wyverns unharmed and even got rid of that huge summoned beast. The man with red hair clenches his teeth and sweat runs down his forehead. He says that obviously he has hidden power, and therefore they cannot defeat him, and one time was enough for them to understand this. Then he extends her hand to the guild members walking away. The red-haired man says that the longer they stay here, the more they will use them, and the blonde shouts for them to wait for her a little. She turns to the guy with frowning eyebrows and says that she and Wushu will see each other at school. Members of the Van Riel Guild leave the heroes and the guy says that the girl must recommend this place to everyone, to which Minhee screams that she didn't mean it and he was waiting for her revenge. The man in the pixelated fox mask says that's unlikely. He hits the blonde's temple with 2 of his fingers, saying that they are forced to collect all the sensitive information. A man in a mask with a fox walks next to the guys, hitting each of them on the temple and says that they ask for their understanding and hope that they will continue to enjoy their gaming life. A hole for a memory card appears in Brunette's temple and she screams, "What the hell is happening?" The masked man stands holding 4 memory cards in his hand and says that all memories since the last login have been erased. Minhee and Jihai wince in their virtual reality glasses when the person says they thank them for playing. The guy with red hair takes off his virtual reality glasses, screaming, asking what happened and why the game suddenly turned off. A guy with a cap on his head holds virtual reality glasses in his hands and asks what he was doing just now, saying that he seemed to have forgotten the whole day. A man in a mask stands and behind him, people from the guild gradually leave the game. The man comes close to the heroes and says that ID is the one who was taken away from the universe. The name is Wushu, so that he explains himself, asking what he was thinking about when he committed such actions. A man in a fox mask comes closer and is illuminated by the moon. He asks if they are really trying to damage the reputation of the game, because next to him is a demon queen and a dungeon from another dimension. Wushu writes something in a notebook and turns around excitedly, asking if they really have a client, saying that the dungeon has not opened yet. He asks him to wait. Clouds of steam emerge from under the man's mask and he tells the guy to answer, because causing such chaos in their world is a serious crime. The figure of a masked man begins to glow blue and she says that she is an agent of order, one of the administrators of another world. Zhu frowns and Lucia smiles a little from behind, and the guy wonders if it's really the administrator and asks that the dungeon hasn't opened yet, but the administrator is already here. The protagonist, lying in virtual reality glasses, clenches his teeth and worries, thinking that their business has just begun, and they have already come for taxes or a share. The brunette frowns and is about to move. His red eyes widen as the receptionist tells Killer Zero to stay put. The man in the fox mask is blessed with blue light and says that otherwise the guy's heart will be pierced, and that they should return to where they came from. Wushu looks at the figure with a surprised look and asks if the administrator really knows about something. Zero is about to move, but Lucia shouts at him so that the brunette listens to him. The white-haired girl's eye lights up and with folded hands says that she also sees it with her demonic eye. The administrator's words are not nonsense. A sharp black needle is on Zero's chest and Lucia says that he is targeting the lifeline, so it is better not to move. Near the masked man there is a figure aiming a needle at the brunette, and the administrator says that she really sees the Reaper, although it is clear because she is the queen of demons Lucia with a demonic eye should see him. The The gray-haired girl folds her arms across her chest and says with a calm expression that in hell there are often beings close to death, but having such a subordinate is too much. The masked man flinches and gets worried when Lucia says that the receptionist used to be a crybaby and has changed a lot since then. Sweat starts rolling down the person's mask and she asks if she was a crybaby. A small child with pink hair is holding a book and crying, saying that her favorite character in the book just died. The girl gets up and runs away, and the man shouts to her where Suck ran. The man in the mask is worried and raises his hand to his face, standing in front of the heroes, and Lucia says that then she was immature and did not understand anything. But now she has grown up very much, to which the man asks what she means and Wuzhu asks if everything works out this time it was Suck. The masked person gets worried and says that she has nothing in common with this user, and she has already said that she is one of the administrators. Ju's brow furrows as the moon lights up his face and he says that her mother helped create the game based on his father's web novel, and she has been reviewing since the closed beta test, so she could become one. The man in the fox mask raises one of his hands and flinches when the guy says that the most important thing in all this is the emblem on her mask, which is Suck's favorite character, and he himself gave this pixel art to her. The fox on the man's mask begins to sparkle and she begins to think that this really was his gift for her birthday. Wuzhu waves his hand towards the dungeon and tells her to stop playing stupid games and help him better, and when the dungeon opens he will give her a big discount. The administrator gets worried and raises his hand, saying that he doesn't understand what he means, but it's better for them to help the agent of order remove extraneous entities from the game. Various colors of interference appear on Wuzhu's face and he says that before this he has a lot of work to do, because he is cursed and cannot even complete daily tasks, being in debt to pay for the apartment and bills. He gets a crazy big smile on his face and says that he only has one chance to turn his life upside down. A blush appears on Lucia's cheeks and she shouts that it is impressive to fall into darkness because of some money, which seems like a wonderful story of the emergence of a real demon king. Sweat rolls down Suck's face and she thinks that this is the first skin that is filled with hatred, and although his father's work is sad, she must do it. Moonlight illuminates the girl's mask and she says that her foresight shows a dark future, so extraneous entities will be removed from the game. Wuzhu turns his head, looking at the girl with his blue eyes. He says that he is warning her that she cannot win, and she is very mistaken if she thinks that his power is limited to just a game. Clouds of dust form between them and Sakai says that it doesn't matter because it doesn't concern her, to which the guy replies that it doesn't concern her, and the girl says that he won't even be able to touch her, and he replies that he doesn't care. The clouds slowly float across the dark night sky while the girl screams that what does power matter if she can see the future, to which the protagonist jumps up, which is very big. They quarrel between each other screaming no and yes. Wuzhu extends his hand and says that he knows about all her abilities, and that's why he's saying such things. Pink energy forms around him and he says that even if she catches him with precognition, it will be the end for both of them. The figure behind Suck points the needle at the brunette, and the girl says that he already said that this is impossible, since Zero is under her control. Wuzhu opens his inventory menu and scrolls through it, telling her that the brunette won't have to interfere, and that she should just wait a little. He asks where his thing is that he hasn't used for a very long time. The protagonist flips through the pages of his inventory, searching, while Sakai asks him why he opened his inventory. Is he really looking at the items that will fall out of him after death? The masked man jumps in surprise, saying that if he wants to pay a bribe, then he better give up. Wuzhu holds out something in his hand to the receptionist, saying that he found the thing he wanted to give her for her birthday. He points to another fox pixel art and says that the face emblem was just part of the set, asking if she wants all the fox emblems. Wuzhu waves his hand with the emblem and Sukhai tells him to send it to him, to which he replies that it is a gift that he wants to give personally. And the girl says that he said that he forgot to give it to him, and the guy asks, hasn't it been a long time since her last birthday? Lucia and Zero look at this scene and the gray-haired girl says that he hasn't changed at all. Wuzhu shakes the fox emblem in his hand and asks, but things that are more than 3 years old simply disappear if you let them go, and says that he will just throw it away since it is not needed. Sweat rolls down Sukka's mask and she says that he is a trickster. The pupils of Wuzhu's eyes become smaller and he asks if the future that the girl sees has changed. He lets go of the fox emblem and the administrator is surprised, saying that he would never do that, to which he replies that he is sorry. Suk jumps up from her seat, stretches out her arms, saying that no, she will disappear like that. She extends her hands towards the falling emblem, shouting that it is the one and only emblem of her favorite character. The girl holds the fox emblem in her hands, glad that she caught it. There are static flying around Wuju's face and he has a huge scary smile and says that she's caught. He grabs the girl around the waist and she screams and he wonders what's wrong. Wuju's face darkens and he holds the sparkling emblem, thinking that she saw perfectly well that if he let go of the emblem, it would fall into his hands. Sakai's pupils constrict and she gets worried when the guy asks that now that he has caught her, where will she go? The girl finds herself in space, where she screams that she doesn't understand where she is and she's scared. Asks if there is a connection with other administrators and why she doesn't have a button to exit their system, as if she's being sucked somewhere. She turns around and is surprised because she is near a black hole and shouts out if it is really a black hole. Sakai's mask falls to the floor. She grabs her head and screams, and Wuju receives a notification about the new title. A bright pink light appears near the guy and his title of the one who brought the administrator to his knees is written in the system window. Wuju sits down on one knee and takes the girl by the shoulders, saying that she has such a wild imagination and gets so attached to her favorite characters. The girl lowers her head with a surprised expression on her face while the guy says that he asks her to just not pay attention to them. She raises her head in confusion and asks what he means. Wuju holds her shoulder and waves his hand, saying that this game is so vast that anything can happen in it, asking that their situation is just one of the possibilities of the game. He leaves the girl and says that he wants to summon another character into the game and his next goal is the blood demon from the novel Lord of the Bloody Demons. Suk looks up at him in surprise and asks that he really means the strong character Androgymed, who was engaged in martial arts. The same demon of the great blood demon cult will appear in this game. Wuju turns to the girl and asks if she is interested, to which she screams and asks what he really wants to say about the fact that he can call anyone, regardless of genre. The guy turns his gaze to the guys, saying that this is really so, because Zero and Lucia came from novels of different genres and thinks that despite this they have something in common. Sakai touches her shoulder excitedly and Wuju says they haven't caused any major problems yet. Sweat appears on the girl's face and she asks if he can summon her favorite character, even though he died in his story. The light from the dungeon's neon sign illuminates Wuju's face and he asks, of course why not, speaking. What if, of course, you do it before he dies? Tears appear in Suk's eyes and she says that yes, to death, and it is really possible, now she understands it. Wuju turns to her with his sparkling eyes and says that she has been slow since childhood and thinking that he will only call him when necessary. The sun rises over the rocks and the guy screams asking if she will join him, to which she responds by shouting that she will, and he screams that they should start.